I'd like to call to order the regular Town Commission meeting of August 15th, 2023. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Please call the roll.
Mayor Tompeck,
Here.
Vice Mayor Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Campo.
Here.
Commissioner Fender,
Here.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Here.
Okay, we have some proclamations and presentations this evening. The first one is the Captain Henry Sewell proclamation, and I understand Sandra Thurlow would like to say something first.
That's so funny. April told me that I had 3 minutes maybe, and so I actually timed it and wrote it down, and I've just lost it. So I'm Sandra Thurlow, and I've lived on Sewalls Point for 49 years almost in November. And I think it's quite remarkable that our community has such a history, and Captain Sewell is responsible for it, and aren't we lucky that he moved here in the late 1800s and started to perfect the title to his land that his mother had inherited from John Hanson. It was a Spanish land grant. And so because of that, he was here, and amazingly, he had built a house right at the edge of the end of the peninsula. And then Karen Neff's grandfather put it on a barge and moved it towards Sewell, and it stayed there for 90 years. Now imagine that. So in the meantime, we find out that Bud and Sandra Schock lived in that house, and they loved the history of it, and they maintained it. And even though they added elaborate additions, they left the old part just the way it was when Karen's grandparents lived in it. And so then it became available because the man that lived in it wanted a palace that was insulated, and he had troubles going up and down the narrow stairs of that ancient little house. And so he got permission to demolish it. And so then a neighbor said, you know, this house is available. The neighbor alerted the Historical Society of Martin County, and so then we got into action. Paul Neff, Karen's husband, is an architect, so he went and inspected it. He said, it is sturdy, it is movable, it'll be a cinch. We came to this commission and we said, could we put it on Sewell's Commons? And of course, it was impractical because it's kind of like a yacht. It's like, it just took so much money to move that and do the architecture to renovate it and fix it so it's in now. The county commission voted unanimously, see, I'm going over 3 minutes now, unanimously to move the house and install it in Indian Riverside Park. And it's right there next to where Captain Sewell is buried in All Saints Church. And Karen is very active in All Saints Church and goes to church there with the stained glass window dedicated to Captain Sewell. And so isn't it just amazing? I didn't know that I had so much information in my files that when Todd Brine asked me to do the historic Sewalls Point things, that we had, I had unlimited information and photos from Karen again. And so I think I was told that the proclamation would be read now and that the family would be introduced. We have not only Karen and her husband, but her daughter and 3 of her grandchildren. So Captain Sewell's blood still is flowing in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. April, would you go ahead and read the proclamation into the record?
A proclamation declaring Captain Henry Sewalls Day in Sewalls Point, Florida. Whereas Henry Edwin Sewall was born in St. Augustine on August 22nd, 1848. And whereas Captain Sewall came from a family of seafarers and sailed around the world several times on the Benjamin Sewell. Whereas in 1889, Captain Sewall arrived on the peninsula to claim the Sewalls family portion of the Hanson Grant. Whereas Captain Sewall established the town's first post office on May 12, 1891, and served as postmaster until 1915. Whereas in 1892, Captain Sewall was among the local leaders involved in opening the St. Lucie Inlet and continued his efforts in getting the U.S. government to improve the depth of the access point for trades. Whereas Captain Sewall, together with Hugh Willoughby, formed the Sewalls Point Land Company and was the first president that developed Port Sewell. Whereas Captain Sewall served as a Dade County Commissioner in 1893, representing Sewalls Point and Potsdam, which later became the city of Stuart. And he was a state representative in the Florida legislature from 1894 to 1895. Whereas, without the significant contributions of Captain Henry Sewall, the town of Sewalls Point may not have existed and become the flourishing, exclusive enclave it is today. Now, therefore, the Town Commission of Sewalls Point, Florida, hereby proclaims that every August 22nd will be known as Captain Henry Sewalls Day in Sewalls Point annually in honor of Captain Sewall and his accomplishments in establishing the town of Sewalls Point.
Thank you very much. And I guess Karen Neff is here to accept the award for the proclamation.
Well, I am Karen Neff, and I'm the, Henry Sewall is my great-great-uncle, my great-grandmother's brother, and I have my husband, Paul Neff, here, and my daughter, Brindley Johnson, and her three children, Andrew, Graham, and Owen. And Owen's name is actually Owen Thatcher. His middle name is Owen Thatcher, named after the Captain Egbert Thatcher Sewall, who Henry Sewall sailed with. He was his uncle, or Thatcher was his uncle. Anyway, thank you so much. This is such a nice honor, and I'm proud to accept it. And I've already emailed the proclamation to every Sewall and Smith I know, so, and they're all very proud. Everybody come on.
Hold on one second. Okay, now. Good looking down. Better to have that shirt, so
So much.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, that brings us to the next item, which is Zoe Berry Appreciation Recognition. Mr. Daniels?
Yes, I just wanted to take a couple minutes to acknowledge Zoe Berry. Zoe was the first intern that I know of that we've had in the town of Sewalls Point. And Zoe was really a big surprise. She is very intelligent. She really took into what working in a small town is about. And I see it as a recruitment effort for my replacement 10 years from now. So, but Zoe, can you come on up, please? Speak in the mic here so they can hear us. But anyhow, this is a certificate of achievement and acknowledges all of your hard work with the town of Sewalls Point. And we really appreciate getting to know you, and hopefully you've learned a lot from your experience. And I'll also have a seal of the town for you.
Thank you so
Do you
much.
have anything you'd like to say?
Oh gosh.
I'm going to jump in there.
You're gonna jump. Okay, you jump in there. Okay, go ahead.
So basically, first off, if any of you, ones that have had kids, know how hard it is to get names right. We have a Chloe, a Grant person, and a Zoe. So she's put up with me many times being Chloe, but bless her heart, she's wonderful. She's going to go far, very determined and good. But she was the one basically that I said I need a dollar bill and I need a broken out with the tax breakdown. And with little direction, here is what she presented me. And so, now with that being said, this is not tax dollar money, but this is our thank you to you.
Oh my gosh, I need a new coffee cup.
And inside is something else for you. So,
Oh my gosh.
I really appreciate all of your help and stuff. And she also did one set of minutes. We already did April, but yes.
Yeah, sure. I have a lot of thank yous. First, I have to say thank you to Commissioner Mayfield. She's the one who helped get me this gig. I had so much fun. Thank you to Bob and Mariah and April and Crystal and Jack. It's a really great work environment here, and I've learned so much. And I think whenever I told people over the summer, oh, I'm interning at Town Hall, they're like, oh, I bet you're pretty bored. But no, I mean, like, I had so much fun, and just because we're a small town does not mean we are any way short of work. And so you guys really helped like renew my faith in local government, and I learned so much, and I really appreciate that so many of the projects we have going on here are so future oriented as a young person, and I appreciate you guys are working to make sure that our town is a viable community for when, you know, hopefully I can move back here. So thank you so much. This is amazing. Thank you.
Did you get it, Chief? Okay. Thank you, Zoe.
And the next item is a ceremonial swearing in, Police Officer Colin Yaw. Chief?
I'm honored to be before the commission today in regards to swearing in a new officer. His name is Colin Yaw, and he is a Florida native. He was born in the state of Florida, attended his schooling here in our great state. He went on to serve in the United States Army from 2008 to 2015, working in combat aviation, their Seaburn program, and later in counterintelligence investigations. He received an honorable discharge from the Army. After the military service, he went on to complete his college degrees. And in 2023, he attended the police academy in Indian River State College, where I ran into him as a matter of happenstance when I was up there for training myself, and encouraged him to apply for a job with us here at the Sewalls Point Police Department. And we're fortunate to say that he's here with us today. By all accounts, all of his references describe him as a reliable, honest, trustworthy, caring, and more mature officer. He's here today with his police family, which includes his wife, Kristen, as well as his children, his brother and his family, as well as numerous friends. And I'm calling all of these individuals his police family because they're going to be here for him throughout his career. And it is a challenging career. We work holidays, we work weekends, there's a lot of family events that get missed, and family members are always very worried for their safety. So it's nice to see that he has a very large support system, as evidenced by the large crowd here today. The town of Sewalls Point and the police department is grateful to the Yaw family in supporting his career choice, because by extension, they're also helping to protect the town of Sewalls Point by basically allowing him to be here with us and helping to go ahead and protect the community. So if I could get Colin and Kristen to please come forward for his oath of office and badge pinning. This is for you. If you want to just stand right there next to me. All right, Colin, if you raise your right hand, please.
I, Colin Yaw,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will, during my continuance in office,
that I will, during my continuance in office,
to the best of my skill and ability,
to the best of my skill and ability,
faithfully discharge all duties
faithfully discharge all duties
which may be required of me,
which may be required of me,
and that I will in all cases
and that I will in all cases
conform to the ordinances of the town of Sewalls Point
conform to the ordinance of the town of Sewalls Point
and its police regulations.
and its police regulations.
I will, without partiality,
I will, without partiality,
faithfully enforce the ordinances
faithfully enforce the
of
ordinances
the town of Sewalls Point
of the town of Sewalls Point
and all laws,
and all laws,
and will uphold both the Constitution
and will uphold both the Constitution
of the state of Florida
of the state of Florida
and the Constitution of the United States of America.
and the Constitution of the United States of America.
I,
I, Colin Yaw,
a citizen of the state of Florida
a citizen of the state of Florida
and of the United States of America,
and of the United States of America,
and being employed by
and being employed by
or an official of
or an official of
the town of Sewalls Point,
the town of Sewalls Point,
and a recipient of public funds
and a recipient of public funds,
as such employee or officer,
as such employee or officer,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States and the state of Florida.
of the United States and the state of Florida.
Congratulations.
I also came prepared. Bear with me. And I also timed this. I believe it's about a minute.
Here you go. You can talk to the mic.
Okay.
Take yourself in.
All right. I'll be loud. I'll project it loud enough for everyone. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the chief, the lieutenant, and the town leaders for providing me such a wonderful opportunity to serve this beautiful community. Also, I wish to express gratitude for my friends, mentors, and the Academy leadership who believed in me and supported me throughout this journey. You all motivated me along the way to ensure I never lost hope or focus of my dream, and for that, I'm forever grateful. I wish to thank my gorgeous wife, Kristen, and my three amazing kids, Thomas, Parker, and Jayden. They have been with me every step along the way. They endured my highs and my lows, the early mornings and the late nights, and unfortunately everything in between. I most certainly dragged them through the ringer to get to this point here today, but I promised them that it would all be worth it in the end. Lastly, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge two important role models in my life who are unable to be here tonight. My father-in-law, Paul, who passed away 3 weeks before I started the academy, and my father, who has recently fallen incredibly ill. My dad and Paul have always been my biggest supporters in so many ways, and were always there for me whenever I needed them. They are the epitome of a strong man, honest, compassionate, and steadfast, and they are the very qualities that I promise to provide to this community. So to them, my family and friends, the department, along with the town leaders and their residents, this is all for you. Thank you.
Perfect. If we want to step all the way back, we can get the commissioners in the background here. You see everyone?
One, two, three.
Thanks, Colin. Good luck.
Thank you. Very nice meeting all of you.
Nice meeting you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We had such a nice start to the meeting. Can we stop now?
Can we table everything else to the next meeting?
Everybody's still smiling. Okay, that brings us down to item 3. Just wait 1 minute while,
I was hoping there's a bunch of new faces that actually want to see our meeting.
not likely. Okay, that brings us to item 3, just public comment on non-agenda items, and we do have one. Art Schwartz.
Good evening, Commissioners. Tech Man. April. Who did I forget? And Town Manager. It's been a while since I've had an opportunity to, or really had something to say, and I don't have that much, and I didn't really prepare much. There is just one thing that's just kind of in the back of my mind, and I'm sure it's in the back of everyone's mind. And I mean, tonight we're talking about tree ordinance and so on and so forth. We get into the we get into the weeds with regard to a lot of detail with regard to tree ordinances. I love trees. I have trees. I'd like to always have trees. They're beautiful. However, trees definitely need to be maintained, whether it's on my property or someone else's property, or whether it's the town's property. And we just have to stop and think about what's just transpired this week in Maui. And it's just such an eye-opener that in a matter of, an hour, what can change? And if it can happen in Maui, it could happen here. So there's things that we just need to think about in terms of management that maybe haven't really come to the fore in the past. What would happen if? And certainly I know that, somebody mentioned to me today that, having fire pits in the yard, and certainly with the heat that we've been experiencing, I wouldn't be burning a fire pit right now. But I mean, that's something that could, in just a matter of moments, turn into a disaster. So I'm just asking you to keep, again, in your minds, when you're talking about tree ordinances, we need to think in terms of maintenance also, so that we don't put ourselves in a position where at some point we may say, what if? What if we had done this ahead of time? What if we had prepared better? So thank you for your time, and it's been a good evening, and hopefully it will continue to be so. Thank you.
Thanks, Art.
Thank you. Brings down to item 4, additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda.
Yeah, I'd like to add an item to the agenda, and that is the possibility, we have 4 meetings set up for September, and I would like to add to the agenda possibly discussing merging the second business meeting with the second reading of the budget, so that we only have 3 meetings. I think because the budget meeting is advertised, we might merge, we can have more business on the final budget meeting than just the final budget, correct?
Well, it would actually be 2 meetings, but held at the same time. So we
Okay.
would do the budget meeting, primarily, the key parts are when we set the millage rate, and that takes 2 meetings to do it.
Right.
And that's the one that we have to publish and,
Right.
set it in stone, so.
So we could add it to an agenda item to discuss, and then I would move that we approve the agenda as written, but adding September meeting dates.
Let's make that, if nobody has an objection, we'll make that 12C.
And by then, we'll really be into wanting to merge meetings, right? I like that, I like that. Okay, so I'll move, okay.
Can you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Campo,
Aye, yes.
Commissioner Fender,
Yes.
Commissioner Mayfield,
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck.
Yes. Okay, can I get just change the agenda, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as modified?
Oh, that's what it was just.
Is that what I did? Okay. That's fine. All right, brings us to the consent agenda. A couple of quick items on the consent agenda. We're going to pull item 6E and 6F, which are the 2 interlocal agreements We'll talk about that in a minute.
Can we pull item G? I have a quick question on that.
We can pull item G as well. And before we do that, Mr. Campo, you said you had some comments you wanted to make on the consent agenda?
Yes. So I wanted to use this occasion on tab 6, page 2, to recognize our great building official, Jack. Total revenue collected in the building fund through July 23 was $453,000, which is 105.38% of the budgeted revenue for the year. So fantastic job. And I see we pulled a big permit in June. So it's good to see us, getting the new business, I'm sorry. So thank you. I think it's a testament to your ability to balance a lot and for people to want to build in our community. And so thank you for your hard work. I also wanted to praise Mariah for, that would be page, 3, then the very next page, the balance sheet for Town of Sewalls Point. It looks like we reallocated, as the commission requested, money from the Seacoast sweep account, earning practically no interest, to the state fund that's probably getting more in the 4% range. So I wanted to thank you for following up on that, Mariah, and making us pretty risk-free money. So other than that, I would move that we approve the consent agenda excluding items E, F, and G.
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Campo?
Aye.
Commissioner Fender?
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about consent agenda item E and item F. My first comment on both of those, and I'd like to see what the rest of the commission feels. I kind of feel that these interlocal agreements are fairly important and shouldn't necessarily be on the consent agenda. I don't have a problem with changes or modifications being on the consent agenda, but I do have a problem with the MOU in general being on the consent agenda, because I think in most cases they require some discussion. And I guess the second item, well, I got a couple of others. It's my understanding that we, based on what I was told before the meeting, that we do have some difficulties with, or the county may have some difficulties with what we have in the MOU, so there may be some modifications required there. But I wanted to ask a question, and I wasn't sure if the commission was had some other question as well, which we could incorporate into any future issuance of the MOU, specifically on the first MOU, on the water replacement project. I was a little, when I read, and I'm on page 74 of the agenda package, under 6A, it seemed that the payment of 20% of the total project costs, and that's under last sentence under 6A, seemed to be a little bit high, and I'm assuming that that's maybe one of the issues that Martin County may have with what we've written here. I don't know if you can fill us in on that a little bit, or if anybody else had an issue with that. It seemed pretty high. Good place to start, I guess, yeah.
Sure, I'll comment on that if that's okay. If I can direct you to page 75, number 7. And it states in here, the town agrees to construct the project in accordance with the design and regulatory approvals for the project. The town will manage the construction contract and will be responsible for ensuring that the construction of the project meets all requirements and is completed on schedule in accordance with the contract and construction documents. The town agrees to perform periodic inspections of the project and verify that the project is being constructed in conformance with the construction plans and technical specifications. Now, in addition to this, we're also paying the bills. We're floating the money until the county reimburses us. And customarily, in other jurisdictions I've been in, there was a percentage of the contract that we undertook and had to do all these things, and that was 20%. They have not, and we're trying to get, I guess, the county to sit down and talk to us, but I really think the town needs to be making some money off their contract, because we do have some important responsibilities that are here. And and when we did phase one, and this is really the same agreement that was in phase one, minus that clause that I had added to it. And I just think that, the county isn't really doing us any favors on some of the other issues that we're dealing with. And I think we need to protect ourselves and make sure that we're taking the steps necessary to fulfill this agreement. And that's why I did it.
Now, some of the issues you mentioned there, I thought were covered under the CEI portion. which
That's in a
is-
different section here in the agreement. I believe it's section 5, and I'll read that one very quickly. The parties acknowledge that the county has already paid a design engineer for the county project portion of the design and permitting, and contracted for the construction, engineering, and inspection services. That's the CEI services. The remaining county project costs are estimated at $1,091,600 and no cents, including a contingency. If you look at that, yes, you would think so, but with 7, it puts the ball back on our responsibility to conduct the inspections, to make sure that the job's on schedule. So it just means more time of our staff to go out and make sure that this happens.
Okay, it would seem to me that some of the items you talked about should be covered under the CEI portion, but, and I assume I'm assuming this is one of the issues that the county has with the agreement. Is that correct, Susan, the 20%?
They haven't actually given me the specific issues that they have yet. I just was informed this afternoon that, or maybe late this morning, that the county had some substantive issues with the agreement.
Okay, well, I guess
I've asked for specifics, but I haven't received them yet.
I guess we'll see how that works out, but I think that, to me, that jumped out at the page at me as being a little bit high. Did
Well-
any of the other commissioners have comments on the water main replacement
I
project?
think you both have valid points. I think Bob is experienced in negotiating the finer points. I know we're talking about Hawaii now. One of the reasons that their fires have gone out of control is because of a lack of water pressure with their fire hydrants. So we've got a lot to gain here. I think Bob knows that, and I do know that might be a substantive issue that they're looking at, but, we're trying to work a partnership, and we're trying to recoup as many of the costs that we have with bidding and then rebidding. So I think we'll come up with a solution, and I would perhaps encourage the mayor, especially with your background, to be a part of that process, because the county still has to adopt this, and I think the next possible meeting for them to adopt it would be August the 26th.
I believe that's it.
So we want to be prepared and hopefully get these things ironed out. So I agree with you, and I'm glad that you brought that up, though, John.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I agree, going from nothing to 20%, I imagine they're like, oh, this is new and now we have to pay for this. But I do agree with the town manager that it makes sense if we're doing administrative work to be compensated for that. So hopefully there's a meeting, if not at 20%, somewhere in the middle, because we need each other to get this project done.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting 0, obviously, but the 20% seemed high. On the second MOU on the,
You're saying MOU and you're interlocal. Remind me that you keep saying MOU.
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. I meant interlocal.
Okay.
On the low-pressure force main. There were a couple issues there, and I think I talked with Joe Capper and his staff today, but I wanted to, and I haven't, and I got a written response on a couple of things, but I haven't had a chance to forward it to the other commissioners, but I will. But I thought you might want to explain. I'm looking at, I'm on page 81 of the package. And I was looking at the costs associated with the meter backflow preventer assembly and the monthly water sewer charges related to the force main flushing station. It also mentioned that once they've achieved the 2 feet per second flushing velocities, that the main flushing station can be taken off the line. And I was wondering, how many services are required to be hooked in before you get to that point?
200.
Okay, and yeah, I think that's about what Joe said, but I think, I wasn't sure if, I thought the commission would like to have a better understanding of how much those flushing charges might be on a monthly basis and where the money was coming from to pay for those.
Us.
Well, but the question is.
Part of 20%.
Well, and is that a legitimate expense for the grants? Or is that, because I think, Joe, didn't you say, I don't have the memo in front of me, wasn't it like 4,000 a month or 6,000 a month? I can't remember what the number was in the,
I think they estimated 2,000 for the water, and then there was probably another 2,000, I think, for disposing the water back through the waste system, but I'll let Mr. Capra clarify the issue if I'm wrong.
Okay, so everybody understands. Basically, we've asked for or the county's asked for a flushing station to be put on the low-pressure system. And the reason they need that is mainly because they can't estimate how many connections we're going to get to start off. So we are going to have a force main down South Sewalls Point Road, and they want to make sure that the line stays clear. So in the project plan, we've designed a flushing station, and we will pay for that with the grant funds, the flushing station. So that's a capital improvement. On top of that, it will take water to do the flushing. And so that's the number we're talking about, is the cost of that water to do the flushing. Now, in our eyes, of course, that's an operation cost. And so we were kind of hoping the county would take that on. But their point to us is, well, that would be fine, but we basically may have started the project on the south end and then have the lines down there. And basically they were trying to point out to us that if we did it in a different direction, which the direction we're following is the way we're building the stormwater system, okay? That's pretty much dictating where we build a system. Anyways, make a long story short, it's about a $2,000 item, okay?
For the
per
water.
month. Per month, right.
For how many months?
Well, that's the point, is how fast people hook up, right? So we kind of looked at current rate of hookup in North Sewalls Point, because those are examples we have to go by, right? Remember about 2 or 3 months ago, I said it's about 35%. Well, today it's at 44%, okay? So that's good. That's a good rate. But if you think about the number of connections we need to do the flushing based on this 2 feet per second that they put in this number, it could be as much as 5 years. So we're going to be spending $2,000 a month. And again, the number gets up there to, it could be over $100,000. Now, I think our goal is to try to get that somehow into the grant, okay? But we can't guarantee that. We kind of left some openings in the wording of the grant that we have. But I don't know if somebody's going to say, no, that's an operation cost. Somebody needs to pay for that. So going back to what our problem is, okay, should the whole community pay for these 167 people or whatever, all of South Sewalls Point, to pay for that flushing? And so we were trying to figure out a compromise with them, okay? And that's where we're at right now. They're not coming off of having the town pay that water bill.
Or the sewer bill.
Yeah, or the sewer bill for the water. So the point is it's it's going to be, and so if we do it one way, maybe our number's less than 50,000. If we do it the way they're saying right now, it's about over 125,000. Again, I think we're just trying to figure out a compromise with them on this. Again, the best thing that could happen is we could take out of the $8.4 million grant, we could take this out of that and get that to be paid for. So we're working through it, but again, it is something you need to know about. We did put the flushing station in the bid, so that's going to be covered, the capital costs. It's just that operation cost that we wanted to try to figure out a way that the county would maybe absorb it. They don't seem to be allowing that, so we have to figure out where to get that money. So that's where we're at.
And what I'll do is, I got the email that James Carnes, works for Joe, sent me this morning. I'll make sure that everybody here gets, well, I'll send it to Bob, and you can distribute
Okay,
it.
thank you.
That way, some of the more, well, he wrote it engineer to engineer, so you probably won't want to read it, but it's got the details in there that Joe's talking about.
Like I said before, I'm really glad that you're on our board.
Me too.
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Yes, go ahead.
Just, and this has been a matter of discussion with them from day one, and when this issue came up, and they've budged nowhere. And, you know, we have a enterprise fund of the county that runs Martin County Utilities. They're getting customers, at the end of the day, 706 customers, with their sewer systems that will operate on infinitum. So I just really think it's unfair. They're asking us, we have to turn this system over to them once it's completed, and then we have to pay for maintaining their system. And my personal feeling is I have a problem with that. And, you know, and they don't care.
Well, we've had a lot of discussions with them over the last couple of years, and there's not a lot of flexibility here. I figure if you're picking up a couple hundred customers forever, their cost benefit ought to be more than a month, you know what I mean? So I agree with you. Thanks, Joe.
Well, Joe, before you go.
sorry.
Sorry. Well, I support our town manager 100%, so thank you for standing up for us. When we did North Sewalls Point, we put in the laterals. The county gave us slightly over $100,000 that was called cost sharing or something, or what was that called, and where is that now? I mean, they're going the opposite direction. I don't understand. What was that called when we did North Sewalls Point? It was called like a cost sharing, rebating, something, I don't know.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact term, but first of all, we have the main lines that we put in place, the low-pressure force mains, okay, those go parallel to the roads. And then when we cross the road, we call that a service, okay? So they agreed in certain area to pay for the services in that, and they paid for those. In this case, we actually have put the services in, we've located where the septic tanks are on the homes, and we put the services in the bids that we took last month. So, you know, so they're in the number already. They're in the number, so people can then go as soon as they, first of all, we wanted them out of the way so that when we put the new road in, we don't have to dig it up, for example. So those services are in, and they will be billed with the contract that the low bid was with Jamie Underground, if you remember, last month, okay? So anyways, that's where those items are, and they'll be paid for with the grant funds, okay? And then
The county's money to us last time was to reimburse us for what? And can we get that again now that we're south?
they have not offered any
Okay.
money
Okay.
at this
I
point.
just think that's worth pointing out, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there were several things that they contributed to so we could complete all of North Sewalls Point sewer. So we can say everything in North Sewalls Point has sewer available. And I'll just remind you one other item. An item that the residents will go to is go to the county and pay a fee, and then they'll put in the grinder station and everything. So we're not talking about that item. We're talking about the item of the main lines in the road rights of way and so forth.
Okay, so, Mr. Daniels, I guess where we're headed here is that this will come back
We're hoping, Susan and I spoke earlier today, we're hoping to get a meeting face-to-face with their legal staff and the appropriate individuals from Martin County Utilities and work this issue out. We do only have about 60 days left before we have to give notice to proceed with our highest bid, or the winning bid, with Jamie Underground.
Okay.
So then I'd like to make a motion that we approve items 6E and F at this time.
Well, I don't think we want to approve 6E and F. They have to come back, don't they?
We've got to approve before they look at it, right, Susan?
I don't think that there's any particular order that it has to go in, but both entities have to approve it.
I mean, they gave us the first interlocal. There's just one little 20% thing that was added.
The county attorney is telling me that the county has substantive, meaning material problems with the agreements as they are. So I don't suppose there's any harm in approving them tonight, but
Just to get the train moving.
in all likelihood, we're going to have to take it up again after revisions are made as a result of discussions with the county.
Right. Well, I think it would be nice to have some mandate that we want to show seriousness, and there are some details that need to be worked out, but, we're pretty close, or close enough to show that we have support from our commission.
I'll second it.
Okay, could you, are there any further comments? If not, please call the roll.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Campo?
Yes.
Commissioner Fender?
Yes.
That brings us to consent agenda item 6G, permission to apply for grant funding. Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes, I just had a quick question for the town manager. So at the end of the executive summary on the memo for it, talking about a grant request is being instituted for South River Road drainage. That project is in the capital improvement plan for year-end 2027. Is that how far it has to get going?
No,
Or-
no, if we can get the grant funding, we can move that forward.
Okay.
So, obviously, when we do the CIP, we're not sure what grants are going to be coming available, and this one seemed to match up with what the needs were, and in speaking with our grant writer and lobbyist, she felt that this was a good move for us, and even made some contacts originally with DEP. So, again, there's no guarantee we're going to get the grant.
Right.
But I think at this point, we've had enough issues up on South River Road, and, I wanted to take this opportunity to try to see what we could get started.
Okay, I just get concerned because even if, obviously this is how we fund our projects is grants, but we're always going to be spending money, and we have these other projects. I'm always just concerned about distracting from the never-ending road project we're doing. Not that I don't support the River Road project, but we're having a hard time getting this one to keep moving. So.
No, I agree, and, it's obviously the timing of it, and, if it's not going to work out with our priorities, then, we might have to pass on it. But I didn't want to not try for the funding and have that problem that, how are we
Okay.
going to fit it in?
I guess I need it.
Kurzman?
Yeah, it's really, I think it's almost an urgent matter to get that done. This past weekend, we had mud coming off construction sites onto the roads, onto people's front lawns, through many of the different streets and areas, not just River Road, but I understand Oakwood had some issues. And this is no way for people to live at this point. And I went through, I got Sunday, I had a total of 7 people approach me or call me, complaining that their front yard is loaded with mud. The road had up certain of these construction driveways had left up to 4 inches of mud going across the road. And it's something I'm going to get into further because it gets even worse because a lot of these GCs, when they come in, they don't even bother cleaning the road. They're going right to their project, and they start banging hammers and screwing and cutting before they even take care of the road. So this is something I'm going to talk about in Commissioner comments. But I promise the people that live there, I'm talking all the ways from High Point, going all the ways down to Palm Road on Sewalls Point Road. And I know there are people that complained also over by Oakwood. We got to do something about this, and we do have to fix along, because the water, if we just spent, I can't tell exactly how many millions of dollars on phase one throughout the whole part one, but what we're doing now is we're filling those pipes up with dirt and debris, and every time you clean those out, it costs, I believe it's about $4,000 to $5,000 that they pulled out of just stuff from the construction lots on the taxpayer dollar. So, we have to fix it so we could avoid more of this water runoff. Also, the construction, dirt, muck, rock, there's wood particles, everything imaginable going down the road into what we just spent all our money on, and the system isn't going to work good. And Sunshine came and pumped out on Friday, and I was talking to the guys, and the drains that were closest to the construction sites had the most muck and mud and construction debris in them compared to the ones further down. So it's a multi-phase problem. It's not just one problem, but it's a multitude of problems, and we got to do this to protect our investments.
Commissioner Fender.
Given this is pulled consent agenda, I'll make a motion to approve as written the permission to apply for grant funding.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mayor Tompeck?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Campo?
Aye.
Commissioner Fender?
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Okay, next item is item 7, public hearing ordinance, second reading. The first ordinance is number 450, height regulations. And I had one, before we go through these, I had a quick question, and maybe my fellow commissioners can refresh my memory. When we voted on these the first time around, I don't recall them being unanimous.
Yeah, I told the town manager that, yes, I noticed that too.
Okay, could you go back and?
I will. It was
Okay.
3-2, I believe, on most of those, but I didn't get a chance today to go back and review.
All right, that's fine. I just want to make sure we cleaned up the record.
Make sure the record's correct.
So is that for the minutes?
No, it's for the actual
On the memo.
ordinance shows being unanimous.
Okay,
for them,
gotcha,
and it
gotcha,
wasn't.
gotcha.
Okay, ordinance number 450, height regulations. With the town attorney, please read the ordinance title into the record.
Ordinance number 450, an ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Sewalls Point, Florida, to update the Code of Ordinances to provide clarity regarding elevations of buildings by amending Section 5034 applicability, amending Section 5136 certificate of occupancy, and amending Section 5176 floor elevation and building height limits, providing for severability, the repeal of all conflicting ordinances, codification, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you very much. Our planner, Bonnie Landry, will introduce the item, and I assume are you going to try to handle all three of them at the same
I
time?
would, if that's okay with you, yes.
It certainly is.
You can do it.
Okay, for the record, my name is Bonnie Landry with Bonnie Landry Associates. I'm here with my associate, Heather Shaw, who is a great help in putting all the summaries together because it consolidates the changes. And I think the most logical way to go through this, if you go to page 122 in your agenda packet, there's a nice summary that Heather put together that basically, if you look at the text in red, that is what's changed between the first and the second reading. And just to refresh the audience, the overall purpose of this update to the land development regulations was to simplify the standards for elevations and heights to make it easier for town staff to regulate and for the typical homeowner to be able to comply. We looked at chapters 50, 58, and 82 of the Code of Ordinances, and the list of changes based upon the LPA and first reading are there. So in Ordinance 450, We just cleaned up the language so that it was consistent, the highest point of the roof versus the highest part of the building. In collaboration with your building official, we did add that the measurement would be from not from the grade, but from the average natural grade to make it more specific. And again, we cleaned up the measurement from the freeboard to the highest point of the roof. So those are the changes in 450 between the first reading and the second reading. If there's any questions, I'll answer them now, or we can move on to 451.
Are there any comments from the public or questions from the public?
Oh, and I left out a really important one. The height was moved from 27 to 32 feet, and that was the 3-2 vote from the first reading, that the recommendation from the majority was to make the height 32 feet.
Okay, can we go through the town commission comments? Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yeah, I'm one of the people that voted yes for this, but one of the things that I did see.
Can you speak into the mic, please?
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm one of the people that voted yes for this last meeting, and one of the things I saw when we had the heavy rains, one of our residents on Mandalay took a video of the water coming off a roof, and it just flew literally into his yard off the roof. It came from another house.
Mm-hmm.
And part of, if we're going to do the roofs this high, is there anything we could put in there that would show where we could put like some sort of, I guess, a deflector or something so the rain doesn't go flying off the roof, and you maybe call for a drain pipe or something, or gutters, but a raised gutter, so that it doesn't come flying into a neighbor's property. Once again, this goes back to our biggest problem, which is flooding in our town. And can we add something like that into this?
I'm going to ask Jack, the pitch language, would that help, or is it because of the flatness, or I'll let him speak because he's more well-versed in construction than me.
And he wears nice socks, too. My grandkids. Good evening, Jack Reisinger, building official. To answer your question, gutters generally aren't built for wind speed, 170 mile an hour wind speeds. So in order for something like that to be placed up there, it would be subject to wind. It would be like a sail. So I doubt that you're going to be able to find anything that would be manufactured that would do what you're asking. They do make a small area, like when you come to a valley where it's a problem, they'll put a little bit of a lip on there to divert it. But to do a whole diversion along the side of a roof, I've never seen it. Part of the issue is to allow the water to get off the roof, not to back it up. And that might even cause another problem with it backing up because it's not getting off the roof quickly. And that's the whole purpose of the roof pitches, is to get the roof off, the water off, shed it. But putting a diverter up, I haven't seen it. I don't know who would manufacture it. Like I said, if they did, they would have to manufacture for 170 mile an hour winds.
It's not so much the wind. There was no wind. I mean,
I get that, but it would have to, anything that you put on the outside of a structure has to meet the wind load now. Anything on the shell that's attached to it is supposed to meet 170 mile an hour wind. So if you attach that onto there and it's going to be subject to wind, where a normal gutter is not that, it isn't in the way of the wind, like a sail, where if you put that extra piece of metal along the top, that's going to be, it's going to catch the wind and the actual flow of all that water coming off the roof. So could it be done? Probably. Would it be expensive? Probably.
Can I ask you a question? Because I'm a little confused here. The item you're talking about, what's the relationship of that between the 28, 30, or 32 foot
because you're higher up. The higher up you are, the further the water's going to go to the left and the right. So in other words, the lower the house, the water's not going to travel as far. So if the roof was the height that we're currently sitting at right now, and the rain was coming down hard, let's say the water coming off the roof might go, if it's really coming hard, let's say about 6, 7 feet from the building. But you add another 10, 15 feet on top of this, and you make it that much higher, and with a more narrow pitch, similar to what we have, versus a higher pitch. When you go a higher pitch and it comes down, the water's going to come down more direct, but when you go flatter and it comes hard, it goes out further. So and yet you're going higher. So if you're higher, it allows the water even more chance to travel further left, further right from the actual structure. And that's where you can have the problems where you're going into neighbors' yards. And I saw a video, it's kind of, it was enlightening, I'll just say that. It's something I was kind of surprised to see. I wasn't aware that it's that severe when you have a heavy rain, that water could travel that far off a roof. And I'm thinking if it goes higher, that means the water is going to go further because it has more of a head start and it goes out further. Just like if water, let's say the roof was only as high as this dais, it's not going to go out that far, obviously. It goes as high as the roof. Over here, it's going further. You put a second story on this and add another 10 feet to see if we're going to go further. And that's what I was referring to.
Commissioner Capo?
I think the commission was unanimous in its support of 27 to 30 feet. The only disagreement was going from 30 to 32. So let me ask you that question. I thought increasing to 32 would, well, first of all, we were doing it because I had asked you if this is a concern with many people pulling permits, and you said perhaps as much as 2 out of every 3 have got an issue with that. I thought increasing the maximum height might alleviate pitch problems. And a little bit aside, but when you look at the building permit activity, we had one new house permit pulled in the past 4 months, and great job that we're doing that. It's definitely slowed, and as we are, becoming, as we're getting used to the income that you're bringing in for us, we want to try to be a little bit more user-friendly. It looks like construction activity has slowed down. I think one of the reasons that we brought up increasing the pitch to 32 was because it had been a concern of so many people pulling permits. So that's kind of the background for doing this. So I guess my question is, do you see the height, the maximum height increasing by 2 feet? Do you see that contributing directly to flooding?
No.
Okay.
And I was wondering if I could ask our two dissenting commissioners if they've had any second thoughts or any other questions they'd like to ask about raising it from 30 to 32. Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes. No, I still feel the same way. It was at 27 for however long it's been at 27, which I believe was a lot of years, and I haven't personally heard of any complaints, not that they're coming to me to tell them. And I think about the smaller lots, like I mentioned at the last time, the smaller lots, one redoes the house and they build, it's a lot more noticeable on a small lot than the big ones. I don't think it's as big a deal on those big expansive lots, but this is for the whole town. So I think giving 3 feet is a nice change, and I don't think it needs to be 5.
And my concern really is also just with the precedence change. I actually don't have a problem with 30 or 32. I have a problem with doing it so quickly without proper communication to the community to give them a chance to object. And I don't believe anybody's heard or paying close enough attention to this issue. It may be minor, but I just think we're doing it too quickly. But I personally don't have a strong issue with 30 or 32. I just think we jam this through too quickly.
Okay. Do you want to solicit additional public comment on that, or, this is the second hearing on this, so.
Well,
Have you heard from any residents on it?
I have not, but I don't know that any residents are aware of the issue either. I would like to hear pro and con. I would like to hear some support or some dissent,
I got one more question. I think if you were to make the roof pitch more steep or higher in this sense, compared to going more like this, if it's like this, it's going to go further. If it's higher like this, it's going to go more direct down. So maybe if we could just, I think it has a lot to do with the pitch of the roof.
Well, but I think we're not, unless don't understand this very carefully, I don't think this has anything to do with the pitch of the roof. It's the height of the roof, it's not the pitch of the roof we're talking about.
But it has to do with the pitch along with the height. So in other words, if you're going that much higher, maybe we do something that's, you'd say steeper instead of less, like looking over here, it's almost flat and it's coming down, which means when the water hits it, it's going to go further compared to when it's higher.
John?
I'm sorry. Mr. Daniels.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring us back to why we're here, and it's not that we're trying to rush this through. We had concerns expressed through members of our own Builders Board of Adjustment and looking at, interpreting the ordinance that we had. And it was very confusing. Some of the language was out of date even that they referenced to. And so that's kind of where we got to this point. And, we've been at, as Commissioner Mayfield said, we've been at, 27 feet. And, we looked at, because of the different factors of people wanting to protect their investments and getting to maximize out of it, and talking with Jack with some of the appeals that go before the board, I thought the 3 feet was a good measure, and that's why we went from 27 to 30. And then the 32 was when we had the discussion here. But all of this really started not just because we had this idea, but there was actually an interpretation problem of our current ordinance with our own board, and trying to sit down and explain it, and even trying to explain it to residents that come in what that all meant and what height you could have. And it was really like a three-prong, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't like three prongs is what we're dealing with.
Correct.
So I just wanted to set that for the record to kind of bring us back to where we were.
Well, I think everybody's in agreement on the method for actually measuring the house, or measuring the height of the house. So it really only comes down to the 30 versus 32. And I was just handed a public comment form from Diane Kimes. I'd be happy to speak on it. You've got 3 minutes?
Diane Kimes, 2 Riverview, and I'm also on the Board of Zoning Adjustment. And the reference that you all were talking about, it was a situation where there could have been some changes, but it was raising with sea level rise. It threw everything else up, and the homes on both sides of that particular house were within the scope. They would be the same level. So my concern is going from 27 to 32, 5 feet is a lot higher. And I think what also has to be considered is what does the surrounding neighborhood look like? There's a house on Lantana Road, Lantana Lane, that is next door to this huge 2-story house. And it's been a very uncomfortable situation for that homeowner because of the lighting of the house, because of just the proximity of it being close to her lot. And I think it's important that maybe not go as high as 5 feet in raising that height element. And we did say that we have to look at with sea level rise. And that was a home that was on the water. And it was surrounded by homes that were 2 stories high. So I think it's the situation too. So my suggestion is to err on the side of caution, because we can always go higher. But once we've set that threshold high, we can't go back farther. We can't go down. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any further discussion on ordinance number 450? If not, I'll hope for a motion.
Well, maybe I can ask Bonnie. We have the Cocoa Beach is 45, Vero Beach is 35, Jupiter is 35, Madeira Beach is 30. What is the city of Stewart?
I don't know the answer.
You don't know the answer?
No.
What is Jupiter Island?
I don't know the answer. I only use those four. I could look it up and get back with you.
So is this going to be 3 different motions, or?
Yes. 3 separate ordinances, so.
Dave, I think it's coming down to you, so why don't you, you want to just?
Heather's going to try to get the answer to your question about the
I
other.
would really like to table this, to be honest with you.
I'd like-
really, I need to do more research on this. I'm just not 100%
All right, so.
saying yes or no at this point.
So I'll make a motion that we make all the changes, but move the 32 to 30. I think we're basically all on that same page. That's the direction we were heading. We need to move the ball up the field. You've done a lot of work. We pay for the consultant to come in, and rather than prolong that, I'm okay. I'm not passionate about 32. I'm passionate about 30, and listening to the board's recommendations that we clarify the thing. So that would be my motion.
I
I'll
could
second it.
Yep. I'm okay with that, too.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Fender, you have further?
Not pertinent, thank you.
Okay, please call roll.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Campo?
Aye.
Commissioner Fender?
No.
Okay, that brings us to ordinance number 451, amending Chapter 5896 definitions. Would the town attorney please read the ordinance title into the record?
Ordinance number 451, an ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Sewalls Point, Florida, to update the Code of Ordinances to provide clarity by amending Chapter 5896 definitions, providing for severability, the repeal of all conflicting ordinances, codification, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Bonnie, is there anything you'd like to add on this?
The one thing, the biggest change on 451 is we wanted the freeboard to be fully explained so people understood it. So if you look at the last bullet, we reworded the freeboard, definition of freeboard to say freeboard in the town of Sewalls Point, and I see a typo that needs to be in uppercase, is the sum of the FEMA elevation requirements, which are up to 5 feet, plus 1 additional foot required by Florida Building Code, plus 3 feet, which is required by the town. So I wanted people to understand how that goes, how freeboard goes. And then the measurement would be from that freeboard. And we did have a discussion with the building official. It is clear that if you decide you want your base to be higher than freeboard, we're still going to measure it from freeboard, if that makes sense. Did I say that right? Yeah. So they can't like start higher and be measured from that. They still have to be measured from freeboard, regardless of where their foundation is.
And Bonnie, there's no 30 and 32 feet in this
There is not.
451, okay.
There is not.
So I'll move that ordinance 451 be adopted as revised.
Before you do that, let me ask if there's any public comments on 451? Seeing none, go ahead.
Motion made.
Second.
Any additional commissioner questions, comments? Please call the roll.
Mayor Tompeck?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Campo?
Aye.
Commissioner Fender?
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
That brings us to 7C, ordinance number 452, update zoning regulations. Would the town attorney please read the ordinance title into the record?
Ordinance number 452, an ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Sewalls Point, Florida, to update the zoning regulations to provide clarity in the measurement of building heights by amending Section 82.1 definitions, amending Section 82.244 residential district, amending Section 82.303 building height, and amending Section 82.323 building height, providing for severability, the repeal of all conflicting ordinances, codification, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you very much. Bonnie, can you run us through this one as well?
Yes, and we did look up City of Stewart's 35 feet,
35?
35 in the City of
Okay,
Stewart.
I want to reconsider, no, okay.
I'm sorry I didn't have it right here, but Heather was able to look it up really quickly.
Heather came to the rescue.
So we're on 452. We're on the zoning one. It doesn't look like anything is different, the cleaning up of the language, but again, it seems to be consensus 30, not 32. So other than the height, is everybody good with the language? It's basically consistent. We talk about the freeboard as the sum of those all three things. And we talk about the measurement from the highest point of the roof as opposed to the highest part of the building. It's just wordsmithing, if you will.
The only thing is, in this motion right now, we would have to go to section 4 and section 5 on page 142. It does say 32 feet.
Yeah, we have to change it.
So then,
Oh, yes.
Right, that's,
So what we would do based on your direction, we would go through and change all the 32s back to 30.
that's correct.
Yes, yes, we're aware.
Okay, are there any public comments on ordinance number 452?
I'll make a motion to move it with 30 feet.
I'll second it. Is there anything that was discussed?
Yes, we did discuss, the building official and I, maybe having a minimum pitch of roof so that you didn't have the flat roofs. So what was that range? It was this is another construction thing, because we could add that. That would be easily.
Depending on the look of the town, you might start to get these more contemporary style houses with it's just a flat roof with a parapet wall around it. So you could actually add in there that you wanted to have a minimum pitch instead of the verbiage of a flat roof, because they could just put a slight pitch on that and just say, well, it's a 112 pitch or 212 pitch, so it's not flat. But you could require a certain pitch if you wanted that look of a you know.
What's the objection with a flat roof?
No objection, just depending on what style that the town is going for. If you were against that type of style, or you wanted, because what was happening is because of the regulation of the height, they eliminated the actual pitches of the roof.
Yeah.
And they were able to achieve their height by going up, but just eliminating the roof altogether, just having a flat roof. But depending on what the desire of the commission is, if you didn't want that, you could then require an actual pitch on a roof to stay in conformity with the style of the residences here in the town.
It is aesthetics, and
correct.
I mean, quite frankly, I'd never want a house with a flat roof for the obvious reasons. They're always the first ones to leak. But, I mean, that's aesthetics, and I don't think we ought to be fooling with that.
Yeah, I agree. So we have a motion and a second.
Mr. Mayor, I think for the benefit of the record, it would be a good idea to put on the record whether there were any public comments.
Okay, I didn't see any public comments, so we did not have any. Make a motion?
Dave did. I second it.
Second, okay. Are there any additional commission comments? If not, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Campo?
Aye.
Commissioner Fender?
No.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you, Bonnie. That brings us to public hearing, first reading on ordinance number 449, the amended tree ordinance. Would the town attorney please read the ordinance title into the record?
Ordinance number 449, an ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Sewalls Point, Florida, amending Chapter 70, Habitat Management, and providing for severability, the repeal of laws in conflict, codification, and an effective date.
Okay, Mr. Daniels, would you like to introduce this item?
Sure. As we had looked at this particular issue with the trees and how we could better protect our great tree history here in in Sewalls Point. We looked at tightening up. I think almost everybody here had some influence on the commission, and with keeping things along the legal lines, Susan was also the one out of our town attorney's firm that put the information that we gleaned and what changes that we wanted to make as a town into the ordinance that you have in front of you. So I think, Susan, if I'm correct in saying the last comments that we had from our, I guess that would have been I think that wasn't a meeting, it was our committee meeting. Yeah, the LPA. So, and those are incorporated into the ordinance, correct?
Those are incorporated, and I believe they show in a different color. The second round of revisions show in a different color on the red line. So I was working from my notes, but doing my best to be faithful to what we discussed.
Okay, is that, anything else you wish to add to that?
No.
Okay. Are there any public comments on ordinance number 449? Seeing none, I'll go to the commission. Any comments from the commission? Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes, on page 171, item 5.
71.
This is just like a grammar type thing, but this item 5, the second sentence, for what it's trying to say, I don't think it reads well. The chief building official or his designee may allow either one-for-one tree mitigation for existing residences already constructed or the caliber of the trees if the number of trees is less than the requirements in the section. And you guys could help with what it's trying to say, but I feel like it should say for existing residences already constructed, the chief building official or his designee may allow either one-for-one tree mitigation or the one-for-one or the caliber of the tree. I don't feel like that sentence reads well. I have a hard time.
You give me the section number that you're reading from, because I don't have the same page.
7021. I think you're trying to, we are trying to say that for houses already under construction, because that was kind of the issue, not already existing, we didn't want the full requirements to have to apply to them because they could have bought the home without the full requirements being in effect. And when they want to go replace a tree, we don't want to tell them they have to go plant 5 new ones. And so I think that's what number 5 is trying to say. I just don't feel like that second sentence reads well. Do you guys see this too, or is it just me?
Is it number 5?
5, second sentence.
171.
May allow either one-for-one tree mitigation for existing businesses already constructed.
Or the caliber of the trees, if the number of
Yeah,
trees.
it's a little bit of a sloppy sentence.
I swear I changed it from caliber to caliper, which is the correct word.
Right.
But apparently it didn't have.
Right, but besides that, the already constructed or the caliper of the trees, I feel like that doesn't make sense. The number of trees is less than the requirements in this section.
It's this caliber, is that caliper.
I think you need extra verbiage after the one-for-one. Something needs to be put in there.
Aren't we trying to say that if for a house already existing, the chief building official or designee may allow one-for-one tree mitigation, or the adding or the caliper of the trees, do we even need that? Is that supposed to be out of there? Or the caliper of the trees? Like, just remove that?
I think it's trying to say, one-for-one tree mitigation says you can knock down a mighty oak and replace it with a potted plant. It's a tree, right? I think you're trying to avoid, that's why you need the caliper.
One-for-one tree mitigation of the same caliper?
Yes, that's, I think,
Something like
the
that?
concept is there.
Or,
You could add species as well, but
I just want to know if you guys, when you read it, do you find it confusing, or am I, okay, thank you.
existing
And I think that will apply, to people because there are homes, And Commissioner
I
Campos
would say
said this
this is
before and
reading
agreed.
1, right?
Excuse me?
This is the first reading.
No, I
So-
thought it was second.
Yes, it's the first reading.
First, oh, okay, okay,
So,
good.
Since you've made the comment, maybe the
Somehow it's
attorney
not-
can take it back, and she
Okay.
understands the spirit of your concern, and I think she can.
I was still thinking it was second, okay, good.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that.
Okay.
So the idea is that you want to require the one-for-one mitigation to be done with trees
Similar size
of
caliper trees.
similar caliper.
Yes.
I think if you made that like 3 sentences, it's a giant run-on,
That's a lot.
I
I mean, ultimately, the first sentence is the important one. The second one talks about how to do the first.
But this one, the second sentence is important because this is the only place where we mention
Yeah.
that somebody
Oh,
with
yeah,
an
yeah.
existing home doesn't have to go back and
Yeah.
plant more trees.
Which is what Art Schwartz was saying earlier. I think that's the most sensitive part to this whole thing for me, isn't homes under construction or new development.
Right.
But current
And-
residents.
And then my other question was, did we, I don't remember, but there was a lot of talk on this subject, so it could have happened and I missed it. But for number 3, we changed 12 to
Number
16.
Number
I guess we did agree.
Just above that?
Yeah. We did agree to 16, I guess.
I thought we did, but
That's fine. I didn't really remember that, but. And then I had one other thing. Page 174, 7083. Usually I go back and check, but I ran out of time. So this is all in my memory, so that leaves something to be desired. So page 174, section 7083, I thought we were going to, I see that the mayor got added in, but then X'd out. I thought we were going to have the mayor, town manager, or designee.
Yes, I remember that too.
Okay.
Add the mayor back.
Yeah, that may have just been a mess
typo.
up
Okay.
with the redlining.
I imagine it's confusing.
Because that's on a blue line.
Okay, that was it for me.
78.
Good catch, go ahead.
Okay. Commissioner Fender.
I'm pretty fine with it. I just noticed a tiny typo in page 171, bottom of the page, section 2. Entire section 2 should be removed, but I think we agree it's going to be there. But second,
Could you say that one more time, a little slower?
I haven't said it yet.
Oh, but
Just complaining about the section.
I know, what's.
There's a
section?
tiny typo. Oh, 171, bottom of the page, paragraph 2, obviously
Right.
dead, needs
Yeah.
a space between it, right? So it's just a typo. But you're welcome to scratch the entire paragraph.
It's a bridge too far.
I know.
Okay. You have anything else, Commissioner?
No, sir.
Commissioner Campo?
So in regards to page 171, number 2 and 3, when we're increasing 12 to 16, I don't know how we might go about it, but what I'm seeing is, when you build a house, I've built a house in Sewalls Point before, you're running out of money, and the last thing you have to spend money on are the trees and the landscaping. So what I see there is 16 really skinny trees, and I see no mechanism to allow for what we're really striving for is the canopy.
Greater than 1.
So is there some way that we could say that a larger caliper equals 2 trees or, something like that?
Sure.
Susan, do you see any way that we can somehow,
Larger caliper trees are going to be more expensive, though, since your concern was money. But
well, I know there's a house very near and dear to you that I think is going to have a lot of skinny trees.
I'm not too happy about that either.
I know, so,
I mean, it's not unusual for tree ordinances to allow replacements to be a group of, replacing a big tree with smaller trees as long
Right,
as the
sure,
caliper
right,
adds up to
right.
whatever percentage you want it to be, equivalent or more, that we can do that, but it's a question of what.
So how would you, so it's page
70, 21
171,
again.
number 2 and 3.
Do you mean like saying you could you could do 16 non-invasive trees with a minimum caliper of 3 inches and a trunk at least 8 feet tall, or 8 non-invasive trees with a minimum caliper of 7 inches,
There you
or
go.
trunk at least
There you go, yeah.
10 feet
Yeah.
tall, or something like that.
Yeah,
Or, some calculation,
I don't know
like
if
that.
I'd go to 8. I might meet you
Well,
halfway at 12.
just,
but-
so you take 16 times 3, that's 48 inches of caliper.
I'm talking about an acre lot, and you're saying I want to reduce the number of trees on my acre lot.
No, the code is currently 12, so please don't
okay.
put my words in my
No,
mouth.
no.
okay? I
I'm
don't
saying
wanna-
you said 8, and I'm saying
I
it
said
was
eight.
12.
I said 8.
Oh, I heard you. I thought I heard
I
you say
said,
8.
if you take
You said
16
I was giving an
times 3, it's
example.
48.
Okay.
16 is 48, so might there be a way to have that same eventual number of 48, but maybe 12 times 4. There you go, there's the simple math. It's 48.
Yeah.
Or 12 with a minimum caliper of 4 inches?
Right.
Yeah. You're saying 16 or 12 times whatever.
16 of 3 or more, or 12 of 4 or more.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the height would be the same?
Oh, good
I
question.
feel like that's for a tree person. I mean, I don't, I would just be saying, yay,
Well, I
no.
would assume if
Yes.
it were a 4,
Because
if it
it-
was a higher caliper tree, it would probably be taller, right?
Well, but it currently is still 8, so I wouldn't want to lower
Like a
that
stump,
number.
you know.
So is that?
You're stumped? Going out on a limb, or you're stumped?
It's 7021 and it's subsection 3.
Okay, so, and what did we do with subsection 2?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing, okay.
We're just talking about bigger larger lots.
So maybe adding a sentence after at least 8 feet tall and adding some language that said if each tree was 4 inches caliper or more, the number would be only 12. Does that make sense, Susan?
I wouldn't do it exactly like that, but something like.
I'm not going to tell you how to do it.
However you want to do it.
Yeah.
You understand the spirit of it, I guess. Susan.
I get the concept, but the height is going to be, it's going
Same.
to be 8 feet
Yeah.
regardless.
Right.
Okay.
Now, I'm just curious, palm trees of all types shall be counted as 1/4
That's
of
the
the...
way it's in our
Yeah,
ordinance.
I know. But I know there's a home on South River Road, the first house next to that commercial building, and they pulled out some oaks, but they're putting in some gorgeous coconut palms. So I think palm trees of all types shall be counted as 1/4 of their caliper. What does that mean?
They don't value the palms as much as the other ones.
Yeah.
Well, it's coconut palms. You got to keep them alive, too.
As George Orwell said, all trees are equal, but some are more equal than others.
That's right.
Okay, well, I won't mess with that.
Commissioner Fender,
You already did me, right?
your light was on, maybe I didn't turn it off, okay. Are there any other changes or modifications we want to make to this first reading of this ordinance?
I think we're good.
I will make a motion to accept the first reading and move to second reading with the changes mentioned.
I'll second it.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Fender?
Aye.
Commissioner Campo?
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Okay, that brings us, we have no new resolutions and no old business to discuss. That brings us to new business, which is the town manager evaluation. And Mariah, you're going to go ahead and introduce this item?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. What we have before you is the town manager's annual performance review. I know it seems like we just did this, because we did, but this is his annual one. And the main thing that, his score for the year was a 4.86 out of 5. I did provide that to you as well. I summarized, I did the same thing that I did on the first one on his semi-annual review. Put everybody's comments in there, so you could read those. And in the town manager's contract, there is language that states the commission can make a recommendation, to adjust the salary if they choose to. Also, if commission approves his performance evaluation, then also he'll get the same raise that everybody else gets come October 1st. So the main thing is we're in budget season, and would just like to get direction from the commission as how to proceed forward.
Okay, my understanding of the contract that, subject to receiving a satisfactory annual performance evaluation, which obviously you've been able to do here, that.
Just eked by, you just eked by.
That you would receive the same percentage increase in base salary equivalent to what all the other employees would be getting. And I don't think anybody here would argue with that. Then we have the other portion of the contract that talks about at the discretion of the town commission, an additional increase of up to 5% may be awarded for outstanding performance. And my recollection was that's a standalone increase, standalone bonus. I don't want to use the word bonus. People go crazy when you use the word bonus. But it was a one-time or a yearly evaluation and not included in the salary.
Correct.
Going forward. So I think maybe I'd like to open up the floor for the commissioner to talk about the evaluation and also your understanding of how the town manager has done on the performance goals. Commissioner Fender?
First of all, congratulations on a great performance review. I just had a question about process. In the past, and maybe I'm missing it, we used to get the evaluations that everybody submitted. It looks like you've aggregated them and given us the...
Correct.
Yeah. Is there a reason why we changed that process, or is there a reason why we don't see all of the commission evaluations?
Well, basically, I've combined the scores and I put all the comments in there. So it's ultimately, an average.
Yeah,
of-
I
of
understand the
what's
average,
done.
but we sometimes it's helpful for us on the dais to figure out where everybody is on the stance of the town manager. At least it has been in the past. And I noticed if they were all fives, it'd be different, but I see that there are not all fives. There's some down a little bit. So it would be helpful for me to see the submissions.
Okay, and I can provide that. We do have that. It was just the other idea was to, save on paper.
Yeah.
You have,
I'm all about saving
maybe,
paper.
yeah.
That's not the issue.
So,
Yeah.
but I can, if you would like me to do that, I can.
That's true.
All your work.
I can look at them in your office if they're
Okay, yeah,
available
that's-
somewhere. that's
Yes,
fine.
they are.
Yeah.
Yep, they are.
I support what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have any comments on the performance goals?
I don't have any comments on those.
Okay. Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes, I was going to say, I think Bob has done a great job, and I think we're lucky to have him. And obviously, I read this as the mayor said, the bonus, the raise that the rest of the staff got, he would get. And then I support the 5% increase annually, which I think is August. I think he's done a great job. He came in low when we were doing when we were hiring. I always thought 120 seemed very reasonable for what we need, what we have going on in this town, and he puts in a lot of hard work. So that is what I would support. I think it is an asset to our community to keep him here and keep the continuity. So
Okay, when you say the 5%,
it was up to 5%, I believe, in the contract that the commission could.
right, but that's not part of the salary. That's a yearly,
So it would,
whatever, I don't know. I was going to ask you when we got to the budget, but what are you putting in
5% that everybody
the
got, and then
budget
an extra
for employee
5%.
increases this year?
Yeah,
so
but
we
it would
put
happen at
5%
different
in
times.
for employee increases.
Okay.
Yes, in
So
theory.
Bob would certainly get that 5% increase
Correct,
based
but his year.
Correct.
on his evaluation. And now we're talking about the
If there was
additional of up to 5% as a,
basically a salary adjustment, I think would be more of a correct way to not bonus. Does that make sense?
So it'd be like
Well,
five.
it's not, he doesn't get that 5% next year, is what I'm saying. We agreed that it was a,
I
No,
apologize.
let's all participate,
Yeah.
because this is good
We're
information.
trying to
which-
figure out the math.
I apologize, yes, he can.
no, we did agree that, at least my recollection is, we agreed that the additional increase of 5% for outstanding performance was a standalone increase and wasn't going to be put into the salary. Is that, did I?
Oh, I didn't know, I thought it was,
Well,
an-
you have the contract?
I have the
I have
contract.
contract right here. It says, at the discretion of the town commission, an additional increase of up to 5% may be awarded for outstanding performance. I also remember the discussion, because the idea here was that if he's done a tremendous job this year, we give him the 5%. But, you know, why should that 5% be rolled to the next year when he may
That's right.
do absolutely nothing?
So it's like a year-by-year option of the commission, is what you're
Yes.
saying?
That's based on performance goals that we've established for him. And, you know, I took a close look
Yeah.
at the performance goals. And let me talk about performance goals just for 1 second. You know, when I've been involved in either developing performance goals or being responsible to perform, I've never had a case where I made all my performance goals because, well, if that happens, then the guy who developed the performance goals didn't do his job, quite frankly. Okay, they're push you. So when we put together these performance goals, I didn't expect that Mr. Daniels would meet all of them. I think he's done a great job, and I think you know, there's a couple of things here that I know, you know, Commissioner Campo has been you know, very proactive in trying to get a new communications plan out, and you know, that goal is still in progress from what he's identified here. The retention goal had to do with officers, and you know, once again, there's going to be cases where you're going to be judged not necessarily on things you can control 100%. That's right. Okay? Just because you're the town manager. Working on the safety plan, and that was another question I wanted to ask the commissioners. When we're talking about a communications plan, we're talking about a safety manual, is that something the commission wants to see as part of, you know, the evaluation of the performance goal?
You mean see an actual plan and that?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, you know,
Can you make sure they get a copy of the safety plan?
Yes.
I was just looking for a box that was checked. I wasn't looking to.
well, I think, you know, I'd like to make sure, I don't want to give you the impression that it's not a trusting thing, but if we were asking for a safety plan, I'd like to see the safety plan, not to necessarily to review it and.
That's fine, but just keep in mind, everything that we generate is going to be in HR. So, and, you know, I don't want to interrupt you, but the safety plan was turned in from the last meeting, and it's in a draft form right now, so it could get reviewed by our HR director, who also is our finance director. So it probably hasn't been reviewed yet because we've been working on the budget. So, but like you said, I'm responsible even for things that are outside of my control, and I understand that.
You know, in terms of the collective bargaining agreement, obviously, that's way outside your control, but I think you've done what we've asked you to do there, and we've had at least an initial meeting on that, developing, maintaining the working relationship with local legislators. I think you've done a good job on that. You got the septic to sewer conversion going, and we appreciate that. The grant program, development of wards and implementation of grant programs, I think is working the way it should. Substantial completion of Phase 3 stormwater by the end of 2023.
I don't think I'm going to make that
Don't
one.
think you're going to make that one.
I've tried. I tried my darnest.
And I think you did a great job with the strategic planning session. So what I was thinking, or at least the number I had in my head, was somewhere between 3.5% and 4%. If you had actually completed all these, but
I'd be walking on water.
you would be walking on water. But that was my thoughts, and maybe we can get some other thoughts here. How about Commissioner Campo first?
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I need to say that my read of the language in the contract is that the discretionary increase is an increase in the base salary, based on the way that it's written.
Well,
I wasn't here for the discussion.
That's not the way we talked.
But-
I'm sure that's not the way we
Because,
talked
well,
about that.
subsection C.
Well, no offense.
I wasn't in those conversations, but if I may,
And-
I agree, and here's my rationale. I'm at a certain pay level where I have individuals that are close to my pay level, and granted, they're here a lot longer than I am, but customarily, the town manager is usually at the higher end of the pay scale. And if there was a problem where I wasn't earning my keep, I mean, I'd be the first one to sit here and, beg for my job, basically. But, I read it when I got this contract, and it was done by the town attorney. I wasn't here when you had your discussion, so I apologize, but the way it was expressed to me was exactly the way that Susan's talking about it. And I don't know who wrote it, if that was you or if it was Glenn, but
I didn't write it, and I'm just basing what I'm saying on the words of the contract without any agenda behind it. But what I'm looking at is that subsection C, referring to the percentage increase based on the across-the-board salary increase, says a percentage interest in base salary equivalent to the percentage base salary increased as determined by the town commission. And then subsection D below that says, at the discretion of the town commission, an additional increase of up to 5% may be awarded for outstanding performance. So when you read those two paragraphs together, that's what it suggests to me. That's all I can tell you.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes. First of all, I wanted to thank the mayor again for the performance goals. I like this. It's something tangible. You get to talk about it, and I know you push for that and to have it all filled out. So I think that's very helpful. I appreciate that. I don't remember as clearly as you the discussions, but I don't ever remember having the impression that it was a one-time thing or a bonus. I feel like those words would have been used. I feel like we would have said one time. I was under the impression that it was a higher raise than just the general staff was getting. That was my impression. That being said, I know I said 5%, but I'm willing to work together with all of you all to find the best number. I know you said 3 to 4, so I just want to let you know that I did not think it was a one-time thing.
Commissioner Fender?
I guess I'd like to review the wording. Of that, but it seems to me that the spirit of an incentive, an additional incentive over a standard pay increase would be, as you described, Mr. Mayor, a one-time, hey, here's a great job, and I don't know if it comes in as a lump sum or is carried as a percentage over a period of months, but I don't think that should, it seems odd that it would carry forever, like if we increase it to 10%, which is why we were having the conversation about, is it 5% or 10%, would mean that he's got a 10% raise forever. Not that I don't want you to have it, you certainly earned it, but I'm just saying, from the wording of the contract, the spirit of giving someone an accolade doesn't seem to be an accolade forever.
I'm sorry. I may have misunderstood the discussion, that I thought you were talking about it as an amount that he would get this year and then it would go away next year. And I think what you're saying is that you're just saying if this year a 4% discretionary increase, for instance, is given on top of the standard increase, then next year it would become part of his base salary for future years. But it wouldn't necessarily mean that next year you would have to continue with another 5%.
That's really my question. And by the way, I'm not passionate about it, but I'm wondering what our thought process was at the time. I mean, maybe we did actually, since you said it that way, say, well, we don't want to give him a 5% raise. We want to give him a 8% raise. And that might have been our conversation at the time.
if I may, and then I'll be quiet, because I'm not used to speaking up for myself, because you all have to make your decision. But if you look at the way that it's written, the satisfactory evaluation, I would get what the employees get. If you all decide and I think you already have, that I'm in the outstanding category. So I look at it like a merit increase. So our employees last year, they got a 4% across the board and a 4% merit. Okay? They keep that merit as they go along. It's a percentage raise. So if you didn't want that, then why say outstanding in there? And that's kind of the way I read it. But you all make that decision. I'm here no matter what.
Makes sense what you're
Believe me.
saying.
I'm just
So
trying
does
to
that,
explain it to you.
remove the ability to provide a, try not to use the word you don't want us to use,
A word that rhymes with bonus?
yeah, onus. So maybe that concept was never actually in the discussion. Maybe it was just, as you described, a merit increase in addition to what the standard staff makes. Either one's fine for me, by the way, but.
Commissioner Campo?
Okay, well, I'm glad that Susan spoke up, because now, I mean, we can calibrate accordingly to language that might not have been that clear. But let's go back to just stress, current salary is X, and then the raise that all the staff is getting is X, and then the exemplary raise would be X. Refresh my numbers, because Mariah was basically saying that the employees this year, there's going to be a proposed 5% raise. So Susan, are you saying that the current number is 120, that Bob, as a member of our staff, if everyone else is getting a 5% raise, would get that just standard, and that there's a 5% in addition to raise, merit, let's call it a merit raise? So I just want to get the vernacular correct.
The way that I read it
But not just the way, include numbers for me.
Well, it's 110, just so you know, so
Okay.
that's what I'm making.
Okay.
So, well, now you're going to make me do math live.
I think in math.
Okay, so if the base salary is 110 and.
Current base salary is 110.
There's a 5% increase that is the standard increase that is approved for employees.
Which is
Then-
item 12,
yeah.
which is
Then
item 12 on the
That
agenda.
would be,
Okay,
you get that increase.
right.
It would take them about 115.
115.5. And then there's the next paragraph, the next subparagraph gives the commission the authority to, or gives the commission the right to add what I call a discretionary increase that would go on top of the 5%.
Right.
Now, I think it would probably be computed on the base. It wouldn't be computed on the 115, but would be computed on.
So another 5,500.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I think it would be determined, the way that I understood the contract, and in my experience, the way we've worked with contracts before, is that when you're doing a salary adjustment, because that's basically how I read it, was a salary adjustment, that it would take effect the date of his anniversary, and if you were to do the additional. So because the way the contract's written, from just me reading it and kind of hearing it, he gets the same thing that everybody else gets October 1st. If the commission decided to do the salary adjustment, the commission could decide whether or not that would be October 1st or August 8th, about when his year was up. Does that kind of make sense?
So you're saying that the effective date of again, what I'm calling the discretionary increase could be set by the commission in making that decision, whereas the standard increase would go into effect whenever it goes
October
into
1st.
effect for other employees.
Okay, so that was me just getting the data, the clarification out there, because I think it's good to have numbers assigned to both of those.
I was going to add for you, the most it would be 121,275.
Right, okay. So now that we have that, my own opinion, because you've stated your opinion, is that the establishment of the goals, performance goals that you set out is unprecedented, and something that you deserve a 5% raise for, so I'm going to make a motion for that.
I'll second that.
And I've got to be very honest. When you first said you're going to come up with the performance goals, I was just like, let's see if you can push that rock up the hill. That was huge, and I think if there's any, if there's, what do you get, 4.86, so if there's any shortfall of perfection, we can just continue to roll that forward, and to have that as a legacy that you've left behind, I think would be a great service to the town. So I appreciate that. I didn't think we'd get there. I'm glad that we did. And I think that there were some things that Bob deserved a 12 on, and so I want to stress on the positive. So my own belief is, and I'm not making a motion, but I'm just, kind of throwing it out there, is that he should get, as Susan says, the discretionary raise of 5% immediately, since he just celebrated his anniversary. And it should stick, because we want to stick with that language. I mean, we have the ability now to kind of correct it, because we can make it, 4 or 3, whatever. But my own opinion is that he's an exemplary manager that we want to keep around. We want to keep him motivated. And he's now in this area, and his name is getting around. So I think I would like to have the full 5% discretionary increase immediately, and then have the 5% that you're proposing for the rest of the staff October 1st. That's my position. I mean, to me, that's a no-brainer. That's a no-brainer when you've got someone with this caliber. So it brings us up to 121, and then next year, we build upon that. That's, to me, a no-brainer.
Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I think Bob has more than exceeded what I personally expected. I expected a lot out of Bob, and I look at it a little bit differently too, because I see the money that he saved us, and that's like making us money, in my opinion. When you look at it that way, he's found money for us, whether it's working through grants, other avenues to help cut our budget in some areas, or recoup money. He's gone beyond what we've asked, and the communication part has been excellent. He's doing a great job handling the staff. Everything, he's checked every box, and like James said, I feel we have somebody that's given us experience like we've never seen before in this town, and I don't think you could put a price on the experience and the know-how that he's brought to us. But to come in and give the 5 and the 5, you got my vote all day on that. I feel you're a bargain even at that, to be honest with you, Bob. You're well worth every penny.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes, I was going to say I agree with Commissioner Campo and the Vice Mayor, but Mayor, I do understand the idea that not everything has been, because I'm someone who, I don't give anybody a perfect review, because nobody's perfect. I don't deserve a perfect review. And that's why we don't say the section about the discretionary bonus. It doesn't say perfect performance, it says outstanding. So given that it is the first year of the goals, given that he met a lot of them, I think that's an outstanding performance. 4.86 out of 5 seems like that for me. And I think he came in low. That's my impression when we hired him. I think that was part of the understood deal. Came in low, perform well, and we will show that we appreciate the effort. And so this is the effort to do that.
Commissioner Fender.
Actually, I agree with all of that, and certainly Bob's done a great job. I have 2 concerns. One is the budget, and does this increase fit within our budget alignments? And the second is the precedent we're saying, since it's the first year we're doing this, that now are we committed now to do 5% every time this comes up, or can we base this on some sort of quantitative performance metric? I mean, the average, I see 4.85 here. It matches to what the performance review is. When I'm filling out my evaluation in the future, not this time, I think it's worth more than 10%, but at some point, that 10% is going to catch up with us. I mean, it can't, it's going to build every single year. So maybe you tie the additional 5% to the metric of the performance where it's 4.85 rather than 5, just to say it's tied to something rather than just saying, we're always going to give them the complete max every time. Not that I don't want you to have it, I'm just saying optically, the other side of that coin is that he did come in low, and if we know from a budgetary standpoint what salary ranges are, we can say, well, we were trying to right-size the salary, and that's why he's getting an additional increase this time around. I'm really worried about the budget and the optics of giving a full max, but absolutely want to give it.
So if I could just speak to that. When doing the budget, I did go ahead and do that, just so, because not knowing where we were, and I had to put something in, so.
Do what?
Basically the 5% and a 5%. So that's how that was calculated in there. So just wanted to be forthcoming with that, since we didn't go over it at the previous meeting. And then I don't read it as it's just an automatic ongoing and thing. From my just reading it and being kind of an outsider, I do kind of wonder what some are saying is, was that language put in there because he started at a lower rate? To kind of allow for adjustments.
Susan's the attorney. She gave her interpretation, so I think we're good there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd like to make a motion that we,
Before you do that, I just wanted to, maybe I missed something here. Wouldn't be the first time. The evaluations that we did that got us to, the 4.8 number, whatever. My understanding that those evaluations were, the basis for, getting the satisfactory higher annual performance and getting the raise that everybody else gets in on October the 1st. And that was, you'll recall, part of that reasoning was because the former town manager, there wasn't anything in her evaluation about getting any kind of a raise, okay? And when we discussed that, and when we discussed the item about an additional increase, we talked about the fact that, we're trying to talk about how we could control costs a little bit, and of course, there's additional costs associated with raising base salary that wouldn't be there if you were just giving it as a one-time bonus. In other words, percentages are based, some of the things we have are based on the percentage of the salary. And it was my understanding that we would base the outstanding performance on the completion of the performance goals as a second part of that. So I'd really like to go back. I mean, I won't slow down whatever the commission would like to do tonight, but I'd really like to go back and look at that, because I thought for sure that we had kind of separated that additional increase from the standard increase that would give the employees. So maybe it's my lack of memory and cognitive turning into Joe Biden. Commissioner Campo?
well, what I might suggest in order for us to fix that Scribner's error, is that what you call it, Scribner's error? Anyway, what I might suggest is that we go at the 5% now, the 5% October 1st. The staff got 8% last year. And then maybe have Glenn, because we've got to blame Glenn, he's the only one that's not here, right? And we clarify that for next time, so that the concerns of, if we do it this year, we're going to have to do it every year. But I think 121 makes a lot of sense in today's environment, and then we try to clarify for next year so we don't get in that, predicament. But that's kind of where I'm at. And I'm ready to make a motion whenever you're
Okay,
ready.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Commissioner Campo, I think that's a good idea. Mayor, to make you feel better, now that you're saying that, I do remember that was kind of the issue and why you went forward with the performance goals, to try to say, no, this is great performance versus just, good performance. So you're not, but since we never actually tied it into the wording, and a year has passed, and I believe that the interpretation of meeting the performance goals, I look at it and there's no way, the whole substantial construction completion of phase 3, that's just not fair. That project is just not going to get done. So I just can't
Wait a second,
judge.
we all voted that.
I remember I was like, well, that's a great idea, but.
And take away Capra's salary, is that the idea? Okay.
So I do, to make you feel better, what you're saying is ringing a bell, and yes, it was trying to give more fodder to decide the discretionary raise. But even given that, so you are correct. I think that he said there, it's not perfect meeting the goals, but it's outstanding because some of these I think are just, nobody could have done it, so.
Well, and I think, what I hate to ask you folks to do it again, but we need to revise the goals for the upcoming year.
Yeah.
And I'll take a crack at that, and I hope that everybody else will take a crack at it as well.
I think it's a good idea.
I'm gonna, just for my personal edification, I'm gonna go back and see if I can dig out some of the information and reread it. Maybe like I said, maybe I've lost my mind.
No, I just
Commissioner
told
Fender?
you you didn't.
I agree with everyone's train of thought and Commissioner Campbell's train of thought. My only stipulation, I'll vote yay. I just want to make the stipulation that I'm going to vote yay with the concept that it's not going to be maximized every single year going forward on my, now that I know how the process works, I'll certainly apply to the goals, and I think the 100% gets you up to the 5%, and then there's got to be some deviation between 6% and 10% that's not just maximized every single year. Not that I don't want you to have it, I'm just saying, in today's inflationary stance, and also the fact that the rest of the staff got 8%, I believe we're on the right track here, and we're fairly protected, and that you've said you've built the budget to support it.
And in this particular case, and I don't want to give the impression that I'm disappointed with your performance. I'm certainly not. I agree with the consensus here. You've done an excellent job. I was just a little bit concerned that maybe we weren't doing what we really wanted to do. And, in listening to what everybody's saying, this is also a way of maybe doing a little bit of catching up.
Yeah.
And we may want to, look at it a little bit differently next year. With that,
Okay,
Mr. Campo.
so I'll make a motion that we add the 5% discretionary increase to the town manager immediately, or August 8th, which was his anniversary, and that we approve the same rate of increase for him as the rest of the staff get. And I'm also going to include that we're going to ask Susan and Glenn to clarify the language on the possible recurring nature of that discretionary increase, so that we are more clear. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
I'll second.
Any additional discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Fender?
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tom Peck?
Yes,
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Campo?
Aye.
and congratulations on a very successful first
Thank
year.
you, thank you, and I appreciate the support.
Okay, that brings us to item 12A, the budget workshop. Mariah, you going to go ahead and introduce this item for us?
I'm gonna start, and then I'll let Mariah take over from there. And I had an opportunity to speak with some of you about the budget philosophy this year, and a lot of it is a takeoff of Dan Hudson when he was here last year. And I think you all appreciated the way that he looked at the budget of, being a 30,000 foot level for you all to take an approval of. And we did include the nuts and bolts that are in there in the back. I just don't, we can get into the nitty gritty, but really for the most part of it, there's certain items that we had to address this year. One of them is in the police department, the the equipment that they use for tasers and for the body cameras is no longer serviceable, and the way that they're doing them now is kind of like software where you have a subscription, and every year you have to renew the subscription. So that did cause for an increase. That we had to put extra money in the police department for it. We also looked at our IT costs. The county is transitioning, whereas right now our email comes through the county administration, their IT folks. Well, they can't keep IT professionals there, so they can't really handle outside agencies that they've been able to handle before. But the chief, through her contacts with the sheriff's office has agreed to take us on. The only problem there is they're on Microsoft 365, Government 365, G365. So it means a conversion over there, and so there's an additional $30,000 that we have in the budget for that conversion. I want you to also keep in mind next year it's going to mean that we have to invest in a server, which will probably be an additional $30,000 that will be kept at the sheriff's office. So they'll still be maintaining it and doing everything that they're doing now. But we're still, when I was in Madeira Beach, our IT budget was $1.5 million. Now, obviously, it was a little bit bigger, but it's still a big jump from where we're at. Yes.
You got a little excited for that.
Well, raises, you just figured, well, hey. But, so I just wanted to mention, again, we're doing this budget this year, but, with Mariah's help and the staff's help, we're also looking at what are we going to have in the future. And I think you'll see in there's some policy discussions that as we go through this budget process, we're going to need to address either now or somewhere within this next fiscal year, just so we're comfortable. And I don't want to steal all of Mariah's thunder, but I did want to let you know that, this is just the first introduction of the budget. You'll get to know this probably inside and out as much as you want to know it. But we also still have to have some flexibility. So if something happens during the course of the year, hopefully I'll be able to move money from one item and it doesn't get budgeted, and put that money onto where our emergency might be. So, Mariah, I think I hopefully didn't steal all your thunder.
You cheated up for her.
Okay. Good evening. So as the town manager mentioned, we did piggyback on the format of what was done last year, and so that's what we have here. So we have the main thing is the budget calendar. We've been trying to follow that internally as well, with a few modifications here and there. The main two things that we do have upcoming is September 6th, and that's when we'll have our public hearing for the tentative millage rate as well as the tentative budget. And then we have our limited time frame that we're required to have our the final budget hearing, the final millage hearing, as well as the final budget hearing. And so that'll be September 19th. And both of those meetings are scheduled, have been advertised. Well, the September 6th meeting has been advertised for 6 p.m. for the tentative. And September 9th, we've got it for 6 p.m. as of right now, so.
That's our regular meeting, the 9th, correct?
The 19th? No. The 6th, the 6th is a Wednesday.
Right.
And so the 5th, we have the next week. Am I correct with that? April would be the 12th?
The regular would have been the 12th, but
Right.
we're doing the final on the 19th.
Right, but we still have a regular meeting on the 12th, correct?
Not that I was aware of. I thought 26th
No.
was the regular.
Okay, then I'm wrong.
Well,
I
then-
apologize.
Well, then the workshop. So the first business meeting of the month is what day?
The 6th
6th.
is the tentative budget.
Okay. But don't we have and this is kind of rolling over to what we're going to talk about later, there are currently 4 meetings scheduled for September, correct?
Right, the
Can you-
12th,
Right.
the 19th, and the
Right.
26th. But you all voted.
No, that's just 3. You said 12, 19, and 26.
6th, the 12th,
Oh, the
the
6th?
19th, and the 26th.
Okay. So the 6th, the 12th, the 19th, and the 26th. Okay.
And so we do have to keep this September 6th, because that's what's going to be on the tax notices that are mailed out. And then we have the time frame requirement along with not conflicting with Martin County and the school board. And so
Right.
that's the 19th. So, so that's the budget calendar. When you go to the next couple of pages, we have policy issue overview. The thing that staff is recommending is to stay with the same millage rate, the 3.27.
What page are you on?
I'm on page 198.
Okay.
So to stay with the 3.27 millage rate and have the 0.4 millage rate be dedicated to capital projects. So that's how we're presenting when we come back with the resolutions. Then the next item that we've got is basically fiscal sustainability. And we broke out, this is our second year that we're doing budget by fund. But one of the things we're still doing is keeping the operating reserve at 500,000, the disaster reserve at $1 million. We're proposing to take the fire rescue reserve up to 400,000, and then you see a little asterisk there. Currently, we've got 200,000 for that. We're proposing 200,000 from the end of this fiscal year, dependent on what we have left over at the end of fiscal year 23. So, and then, we would do that. So, and the purpose for that is our fire contract is going up in fiscal year 25. So that'll help us through those next couple of years, because in fiscal year 27, I think that's when we'll feel the crunch for that. So we've got that, that's the fiscal sustainable that. Employee retention, as we previously discussed, we did do a 5% increase. Right now, I've got a little.
You did or you're proposing?
5%.
You said we did, but you meant you're proposing?
Yes,
Okay.
staff is proposing
Yeah,
a
okay,
5%,
okay.
yes. But it's 60,000 for the non-unionized employee wages. That's kind of a cost of what that 5% will run us. We have gotten our medical benefits in, and that cost is increasing by 5%. So our recommendation is not to change anything there, to stay status quo. We were anticipating anything over 10 to 15. Other agencies are experiencing high renewals, new rates for the upcoming year. So we were, I think, pleasantly surprised with the 5% increase to that. And then the next thing is the capital improvement plan, and that was adopted July 18th, Resolution 962. Once again, that's just the 5-year plan.
So you just switched to page 199?
Yes, correct. Sorry about that, yeah.
Okay.
So on page 199, we've got the capital improvement plan. And the main thing is, we're still continuing to look for additional funding for those plans. And we do have a note in here that it says capital maintenance exceeds recurring revenue. We would like to pursue future conversations regarding, how we can fund capital maintenance regarding our stormwater facilities and things of that nature. So that'll, we would like to do that during fiscal year 24. Going to page 200,
I'm sorry, could I interrupt? I don't understand the sentence, capital maintenance exceeds recurring income. What does that mean?
So currently, right now, in the capital budget, we have the revenues that come in. And
What
so
revenues do we get that's
right now, we
capital
have we've got the gas tax and the second local option of gas tax that is going in to.
So that's earmarked?
It's not earmarked, but it's helped,
So gas tax and what?
and it's the second gas tax. So there's 2 gas taxes.
Gases tax?
Sorry, that's.
Sorry. Gas is-
Gas tax and gas tax. There's a first and a second that we do get.
Okay, cool. All right, so I didn't know that was tied to capital maintenance.
It's not,
Kind of is. Because if we don't use it,
Exactly, it just stays in that fund.
Treated out of the,
Mhm.
out of the.
Yes.
That's a calculation with the county, right?
Yes,
Right,
and the
okay.
state as well.
We're not using that and pushing.
Exactly, we still get
Right.
those revenues in.
Right.
So, okay, so am I good to go to page 200? Okay,
Yeah.
so on page 200, oops. Thank you. Page 200, this is basically talking about the property tax. Our tax base increased to 907, basically $907 million. That's our taxable base. It's bringing in if we keep the same millage rate at 3.27, we're bringing in approximately about $250,000 additional for the year. And of that, so when we talk about our property tax being broken down, we are looking at, whoops, call on Joe.
Got to get that college intern back.
That's exactly. Well, I borrowed those. I borrowed those, and that one was broken.
Got it.
So I have to make that disclaimer when I take it back. That was already broken. But yeah. Do we know how to do that?
Put that in the performance review, would we?
Basic motor skills, no.
Thank you. But we're looking at approximately $345,000 being transferred over to the capital projects fund.
That's funny.
So, so that's the main thing about the property tax. We did hear, folks wanted a little bit more visuals, and so this is a visual. The dollar bill at the bottom is a visual that a lot of agencies do use, and it kind of shows how your property tax dollar is broken out. So the majority of your property tax goes to Martin County, which is 40% approximately to the county, 36.5% to the school, 20% to the town, and a little over 3.5% is other little miscellaneous items or
Mariah,
agencies.
Can I ask a question? And it's not really, doesn't really fit in here, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How much money have we spent out of the capital millage rate bucket?
Out of the capital millage rate?
Yep.
I
I know what I want the answer to be. I'm hoping you're going to give me the right answer.
Well, that's a tough one. We have transferred over $600,000 into the capital fund.
Mhm.
And we have roughly 1.2, I'm going off the top of my head right now, but 1.2 million sitting in the fund balance as well. We haven't done really any capital projects per se, so some of that money is going to engineering and the development of that. And where I say it's hard to really kind of say right now without actually me coming to you with numbers.
All right, look, I don't want to waste the rest of the folks' time here. Maybe we could talk about that separately.
Yeah, and I can do that. What I was just going to say is because some of those monies are going to be reimbursed. So that's where, some of the things we're fronting.
Okay.
So,
Good question.
Well, I was hoping the answer would be none, because I didn't think.
That's what I was hoping for.
well,
Because I think, to my memory tells me we've collected this for 2 years, right?
Right.
So far?
Mhm.
And it was about, I think you're saying it's about 310,000 or thereabouts?
correct.
So it'd be maybe 625,000
Right.
bucks.
Mhm.
But I don't think we'd authorized any money to be spent out of this, but we know, we want to make very sure that any money spent out of this is only used for road projects.
Correct.
That's what a resolution says.
Well, on page 198, you've got policy considerations, operating reserve, disaster reserve, fire rescue reserve. Theoretically, that should be 600,000 for
So,
the capital projects reserve, right?
well, if you look, so if you go, so I handed out, we had a commissioner that asked for a different printout of the budget, and so that was what I handed out this evening. And so if you, those additional pages, yes.
Yeah.
So if you go to page 6 of 6 on that, you're going to see basically the revenues. And
606. Hang on just a second. Put it in. Okay, yeah.
yeah, so
6 of 6.
page 6 of 6. So you're going to see right now, and it is a little skewed because you have to remember this 2.3 million was a transfer for the property that, we got a $2 million loan. But 314,000 was what was transferred in from the .4 millage.
What line are you on?
So right at the very top, at the very bottom where it says net revenues, right above that, 301,000,381,001. You've got,
Transfer.
it's bolded, right above the bolded line. You've got 1.2 million, then 2.7, then you see the 9.1, and up right above it says 2.3.
I see 412,900.
That's, yes, and so that's going to be the transfer right now. So we can only budget 95%. So what we collect. If we collect more, then we can transfer more.
I'm sorry, sure.
Finish your thoughts, I will ask questions.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, you're fine.
Get so far off the track here. Go ahead. Commissioner Fenton.
So this is excellent work. Thank you so much. I just need you to point me at a few things.
Okay.
I guess this budget you just gave me is what I was looking for because I couldn't compare last year to this year. So I like the comparison. Can you show me the line item that represents the .4 capital fund, if it exists?
Yes, so that's what we were just looking at. So
Okay, so you're saying that the total aggregated .4 of all the times we've been collecting it totals 412,000 at the 95% rate?
So,
Because I heard 600,000, because we'd done it, got about 300,000 a year, or maybe I'm doing
we
that
did 300,000, we budgeted for 300,000 last year, and then 300,000 from the previous year was also done. But when
Right.
the fund was created, that's when that was done. So when the fund was
But
originally.
that, to me, simple math is around 600,000.
Correct, it's
But I see
600,000.
412,000 there.
So
I'm trying to
that-
understand.
Is
So
that what
that's-
you're projecting for the
For
next
this coming
fiscal
year, fiscal year
Okay, so-
24.
But wouldn't it be aggregating somewhere in a fund balance amount?
You could,
Since we haven't spent any of it ever?
you could have it as like restricted dollars, but it's the same thing.
Oh, I don't want to restrict it. I just thought it was
I do.
identified for
I do.
capital projects, and it should be piled in
See,
a fund.
we're looking at the income sheet. We should be looking at the balance sheet to figure out where those.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. This is
This is
This is
This is a budget, it's not a.
revenues.
Okay, all right.
But we-
And,
So there's my
Excuse me just
question
one
then.
second, but we can pull, whatever you want
Yeah.
to see as we go into the next meeting,
Sure.
we'll get for you. It's just,
So that's one thing. So I had a couple
Yeah,
things.
everyone agrees that
Yeah.
that's something.
It would be good to see this type of report with fund balances, comparing last year's fund balance to this year's fund balance, and also an aggregate of what, where we stand with those fund balances, I guess.
I think the other thing it really comes down to is, when we had the pleasant experience of raising, the millage, we made it very, very clear to everybody that what was going to be spent on, and we
Yeah.
damn well better be sure that's what it's being spent on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. So then secondarily, to that effect, to that point, I'm very appreciative of page 201, which I think I must be generated because I sort of asked for something like it. Maybe not, I won't take the credit. But I'm hoping that we can tweak it a little bit. I assume it all ends up down at the bottom of the bottom aggregated section. It would be awesome if we could sort that from highest to lowest, maybe, or lowest to highest, doesn't matter. Right, I don't know what order they're in now, maybe alphabetical, but the millage rates from FY 2023 are not in numerical sequence, so I can't see which town, I can see, but I have to do some little work to see who's at the top and who's at the bottom, and who's got the most expensive millage rate and who has the least, which is important to me. In the past, we've actually had a multi-year graph that was a line graph that showed which towns bumped up, which towns went down over, I guess it was a 10-year period. I don't know, I can go back and find it. But still, and also, I don't understand the value of depicting Jupiter Island with or without its beach. I would just scratch the lower one and leave the full Jupiter Island cost and get rid of the 16 dot. And that would then make this graph even more beautiful to me because it then puts us in a very attractive position as to what millage rate other municipalities around us are paying.
Yes.
Because even with the 4.0, which was the argument we made back in the 4.0 day, that we're going to raise it a little because we have capital projects, but even if we do, we're still going to be one of the lowest millage rate municipalities on the Treasure Coast. So I like that message, and I would love to see it on one of those charts up there.
A line graph?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, however, I like the line graph concept if it depicts the message we want to depict, but I'm trying to make the case for we all have taxes, but living in Sewalls Point, there is some benefit, and the naysayers will come back and say, well, of course your taxes are going to be lower because your housings are more expensive. Well, okay, but it's not the case for Jupiter Island, and they're tenfold over us in cost values, right? So anyway, my point is we are trying to make the case that we are a very frugal community, and we manage our finances accordingly and in protection of our residents, So that's the case I'm trying to make with this great chart you've given me.
Yes, and I can, a line graph, we can do that. The problem that we'd run into if I was to do it in numerical order is each year they change. So
Well, they do change each year, and that's kind of what the line graph.
that line graph would
about,
depict that.
But for right now, on this snapshot, if they were in numerical order, I could see which one was at the top and which was at the bottom.
Okay.
For the 1 year snapshot only, which is 2023. Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, I would say the most current year would be the most important
Okay.
of numerical order, in my opinion, but I'm happy to take yours. What order are they in now? I'm just curious.
They're in the order that they were used last year.
Okay, it doesn't seem to be alphabetical.
Like I said, we followed Dan's
Yeah,
model.
okay. All right.
So, but I can definitely do my best to get a line graph done before we meet again.
Not trying to make a lot of work for you, but I just think given that you've done some work on making a pretty strong visual case up there, which is awesome, this would be a pretty strong part of your case that you're making. We can get our intern back to do it for you.
Okay, so then we go into,
I'm
I was-
sorry,
oh, yeah, go
Commissioner
ahead.
Mayfield, do you have something you want?
Yeah, just real quick. Just to help clarify, and Mariah, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I'm right. So the point about the balances is, like you referenced the balance sheet for the budget, the town is only required to adopt the zero, whatever you call it, zero basis revenue and expenses.
Correct.
And that's why you're not going to see any balances, because it's just what's happening in the year. And then if you go back to the balance sheet, that would show the balance, but to your point, we're not separating it out at this point, so we could do that. But at any given moment, you can go look at our financial statement balance sheet to see.
Correct, yes. The state does not, that is something that I questioned. The state does not require fund balances to be adopted.
Right.
So,
Mr. Dan, do you have something you want to add right now? or-
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mariah.
okay.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. So, moving on, basically, we just kind of have a summary, and this next page, 202, just briefly talks about the sources and the uses. And so, the general fund, primarily, the uses of our revenues are public safety. And so that's our largest item. And primarily our largest revenue source for the general fund happens to be property taxes. So that's something that we've got, depicted in the graphs as well. So property taxes right about the 80% mark, and sales tax comes in right about the 8%, franchise fees is 6%. There's a little bit of intergovernmental, which is 2%, and then other little teeny tiny taxes is 2%. So the major revenue source that the town does rely on is property tax.
I'm sorry, can I ask one question about that?
Go ahead.
They're behind
What
me.
about, I'm just curious where the permit fees fall into that.
So the permit fees are going to be in the building fund. So this is just showing general fund.
Okay.
So building fund is, you have to remember, it's Thank you. The building fund is self-sufficient, I don't want to say self-sufficient, but the building fund revenues fund the building department's expenses. So that's why they're not included in the general fund. The general fund is basically the operating fund of the town.
Okay.
Does that make?
It does, it's just weird, but it's fine.
The idea about splitting the building fund off, splitting the building fees, revenues and things off into its own fund is by law, those dollars really can only be utilized for building.
Yeah, actually, that makes perfect sense.
So that way that.
It's really a
It's like an enterprise fund, but.
Exactly,
Right.
yes. And so that way you don't all of a sudden lose sight of the revenues.
Right.
So, okay, is that? So, and you'll see that there, it does explain the building fund, and then it goes into the capital improvement fund. And so, that's just a little bit of detail. Then we go into, on page 203, which the page number's at the top.
Can I just
for
ask a
few.
really dumb question about that last topic? What can we use those building permit funds for?
Jack?
Building department
Oh, it's not here anymore.
expenses.
Yeah, building permit.
So salaries.
Some of you too.
Right,
Yeah.
and there's a percentage of my salary that they pay for because I have to supervise what's going on in the building department. Any of the computer programs, fees that are associated with the permits are paid. Mariah's time, there's a piece of her salary that gets paid out of the building fund. So all those are justifiable expenses, just as long as we can show if we ever get audited or, well, we do get audited every year.
I mean, is the goal there to keep permit fees low?
Well, the goal is to keep your fees where they should be. It's not meant as a cash cow to make a lot of money. It's, obviously we do that, but, we have other expenditures that we can do, like renovating the building department area.
Okay.
They want the building departments to be self-sufficient. That's what they want.
But not generating too much excess of.
I would think that most residents sort of believe incorrectly, me included, I guess, that impact fees, permit fees, when somebody builds a McMansion on a vacant lot, the permit fees to do that construction benefit the town in some way to offset property taxes. That's what you're saying is not the case.
Well, to some extent it is, because the general fund isn't paying for Jack's salary. The general fund isn't paying 100% of my salary or 100% of Mariah's and Crystal's. So it's portions of it in all having to do with the different job functions.
Okay, well, that's helpful.
And we had the road improvement fee thing, right? And that kind of goes for the wear and tear when someone is doing construction, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I see ways we can benefit, sure.
So there is a benefit, not the way that they would think. Every
Yeah,
dollar
right.
for dollar comes
Right.
out and keeps our taxes from having to be increased.
Understood.
And this isn't going to maintain itself in the long run either. I mean, right now, we're at a peak. It's going to start going like this, because this town's built up, and it's just the only permit fees you're going to see are renovations.
We've been saying that for years, by the way.
Oh, no, but there's no lots. They're
But
just wrecking homes.
they are allowed to have a reserve fund to balance out, the demand for construction. If it does hit a low spot, they are allowed to have a reserve fund to handle that. And that's also a part of it.
Mhm.
Sorry, all right.
Nope, you are fine. So the next pages, several pages, will have basically a different, this is the budget that we're presenting for adoption. And on these next few sheets, once again, this was a format that was utilized last year. And it kind of follows our auditing format as well, the reporting, financial reporting, where you have a general fund column, a building fund column, and a capital projects fund column. So, and then it's down the line on the first page, you'll see the revenues, the different types of revenues. So depending on which fund they fall, that's where you're going to see them. So then we have the expenses. I do believe what I handed out earlier this evening before the meeting started is probably going to be the best document to utilize, to go through the budget and stuff, and we'll make sure that if the commission likes that format, I can switch that out and put that in the document as well. So,
Is it appropriate or inappropriate for me to ask 2023 column on that?
so we do have, so in the one that I handed out, you'll notice we've got a 21, 22 column for activity. So that was the
That's
12
helpful.
months.
I'm talking about on the bound copy on page 203. Is there a reason why we wouldn't put a 2023 column in there? Just so we can easily, on this format, see the increase or decrease difference?
So what I can do, you're wanting to do a 2023 like budgeted column? What
I
we
just want to be
budgeted?
able to compare last
This
year to
current
this year.
year's budget with the next budget.
Yeah, the
So-
budget we're proposing, so I can see that, oh, we increased this line item by,
So my only,
That's on this format.
Yes,
We
I'm-
have
I'm-
3 columns.
yeah, so
does
the
it line up I mean, I guess maybe this one's easier to read for me, but do these line up exactly?
No, they
I see
don't.
2890.
Yeah,
Okay,
so because-
Top line does.
So, because you have, basically, you have got your general fund, your building fund, and your capital fund side by side. And so that's where it's going to be a
We can
little
try
bit
to
more
work that
different.
out.
Yeah,
All right,
so
just-
it might make numbers a little squished, but
I think the important one is 209.
209. Oh, you mean page 209?
Yes. Just to move us along a little bit.
Sorry.
It's a lot.
Yeah, I have-
No, it's just a lot for you to grasp. I want to reemphasize, you don't have to do it all
I
tonight.
I appreciate that.
yeah.
The fire rescue page is what you...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think it's
This
important
is,
just.
so we're still talking about, yeah,
Well,
but yes, I
that's
do have a copy for
important
you.
too.
So the fire rescue agreement is, it jumped up a little bit in fiscal year 2024, but it is going to jump up significantly in fiscal year 2025. And this was discussed last budget year, and that's where the money, there was 200,000 put aside to help with that. And so we've got remaining $4.6 million of the contract for fire services. Yes, that will,
No, I'm not really familiar with this contract, but
It was
Geez.
painful when it came out. I was here.
it sure is, and I look at the numbers and how,
2018 was a beautiful year.
yeah, I mean, look, it shouldn't, look at how much it increased between 2018 and
I
2029.
remember seeing that change.
I wish there was something we could do about it, but
Well, the situation is too, on the county side, they're higher. And, I went back and I looked at the study that was done when we went with, the historical documents, and it was, they're in like the million area where we're still under $1 million. And I'm not sure where we would be today, but we could probably take a look at that for reference point.
pay for those fancy new buildings they're putting up everywhere, I guess.
Yeah.
and so, and I added the chart just as a reference piece, because I do think it's important to keep it forefront every year when you're doing the budget. It's because it is a large expense. So, now moving on to the fun page. We spoke about our recommendation of the 5%, as the budget could withstand.
Does the fund page have a number?
210.
210.
210.
Yeah, employee retention.
Mine are all...
So these are policies. So we spoke about we recommend the 5% increase, and the budget does have that reflected in there, so it will support that at this time. Just so people know, last year it was 8%. I did numbers, and I could not justify, after speaking with Bob, without that. The main thing here, one of the big things is that, one, there's no, we're not adding any staff. We're not proposing to add any staff. We're staying status quo there, and we are suggesting that our vesting policy be changed to help with employee retention. One of the areas that we, have is the police department. And so just trying to, possibly that would help out and things. So we're proposing going to 30, 30, and then 40. So that's to be discussed, or, when you guys vote on everything. That's pretty much status quo. I mean, as far as
Mayor?
everything
Sorry,
there.
Commissioner Mayfield, I have a question as well. Go ahead.
Just a quick comment about that. We talked about it earlier, and I was thinking about it, and I understand the intention of increasing the vesting schedule. I think it's a bit ambitious, particularly because it says this will encourage employees to remain with the town during the critical 2 to 5 year. So I would think maybe you could stretch it out and do, 4 years at 25. I understand that you want to make the first year something vested. I feel like that's the critical point. Maybe do 4 years at 25, because that's continuing up to year 5. If the critical years are 2 to 5, that might, compel people to say. Anyways, that's my input there.
I was curious, the 5, I don't necessarily have any problem with the 5%, but is it based on anything, or?
2.5.
No, I can do that addition.
No, we were looking,
I was curious about other government
Other,
around, or do we, I assume we don't work with a compensation consultant.
so, no, so other government agencies, so basically, being part of the finance officers group, there's emails going back and forth of what people are looking at, and it's been between 5 and 6%, because just, that's what people have been looking at. Right now, CPI is averaging 3.2%, and I'm trying.
for a month-to-month comparison is like 3.2.
Yeah.
And, so somewhere at the end of the annual rate is probably going to be 4 to 5%. And that's why we're looking at doing a 2.5 and 2.5 split.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't have a problem with, I think, we owe it to the town folks to give an idea where the number came from.
Right.
Yes. And I think that would, and I did mention this to the town manager too, just establishing maybe a policy if CPI is something that the town, would like to use in the future, going forward, having that 12-month look-back period, what that would be, and if the 5% merit raise or whatever, but we do need to make sure that the budget can support it. So, moving on to page 212, we have the capital improvements plan. Like I stated before, this is what the commission has previously adopted, so this is what was in the packet upon adoption. So, nothing new there. And then we just have some unfunded items or future items that we listed. The PD, last year, there was the vehicle replacement. We did not replace any vehicles in fiscal year 2023. So I left that there because they are going to eventually need to have a few vehicles replaced. IT upgrade is going to need to be done as well. And then, just once again, the capital maintenance. So figuring out how we can support the stormwater system maintenance and as infrastructure is added. And that is, then as we talked about, there's maybe too much detail in those next few pages up to page 228. Then we go down to what I added from page 1 to 6. Makes it a little bit easier to read.
Hopefully it gives you enough to get your taste of the budget process, and, as you decipher it, you can let me know, where you want to expand or contract the information. But we want to make sure we address all of your concerns.
Great. Any other, I'm sorry, Commissioner Campo.
Yeah, a few things. First of all, I think that the headline is same ad valorem, no new positions. So, I mean, that's kind of the headline. But then, you know, I think the commissioners want, I mean, is how much money is going to go to the capital improvement budget? So where is that number? Because, you know, we had this $23 million capital improvement budget for this year. Okay, here, page 213. So $17 million. How much money are we going to, I mean, do we actually have? I mean,
So,
how much-
right
how
now.
much- I mean, we're short. I mean, now's the time to figure out how we're going to come up with the shortage of, I like to call it, what's the word? Is it Emerita to Rio Vista, I don't know I guess that's phase 3.
Yeah, actually, Phase 3 is Ridgeview to
Ridgeview.
Pineapple.
Pineapple,
But
okay.
we, as part of the motion that you all made in reference to the grant funding, you know, that application goes in this month for roughly, I think it was $5 million for Phase 3 and $5.4 million for Phase 2 as additional funding of what we've already got committed to.
Right.
So,
Yeah, but how much of our own money are we planning from our own coffers, reserves, whatever, are we planning to put up for phase 3?
we don't know yet, to be honest with you, because
How much do we have? How much do we have? I mean,
budget-wise,
these grants might all come in, but,
right.
I mean, we're using all of other people's money, and it's nice to use, you know,
So-
as much, but
Right now, like I said, we've got about 1.2 million in the capital, basically in our balance. Let me see here. And
So where is that, so are you planning to spend 1.2 million of our own money in capital improvements this year? And if so, where's that on the budget sheets?
And
we're not planning on spending that this year.
Okay. But we
And
have-
so, but for next year,
I think he's talking about 24.
for 20,
He's saying this year, the year that they're looking at is 24.
The year that we're adopting is called fiscal year 24.
24.
Right. okay.
Yes.
So we have a need of 17 million. We're short, we're taking out a loan, but how much of our own money are we prepared to spend?
So right now, we are showing, basically, we're showing the grants, and we budgeted, so the majority of the money is the grants. And I think that's why I made the caveat, like even in the capital improvement plan, that it's truly dependent on funding. So once we know what grants we're getting in, then we'll know what we have to match, because whether it's a federal grant or a state grant, right now we're still, and then the cost of the contracts.
Okay. The mayor's asked, and I think the other commissioners are saying, we've been setting aside money for the capital improvement.
Correct.
How much money do we have to spend? Because that's the project that everyone is interested in, is South Sewalls Point Road. How much money do we have to spend of our own money? You could come back to me with that number for the next meeting, but that's what I think we're all looking for. It's great that air conditioning's fixed and everyone here is comfortable, but we want to make sure that we're getting something tangible, that we build, that we leave behind.
So-
and rather than just operating expenses.
Correct.
Okay.
And one of the things that I just want to point out is when you look at the size of the projects, so, and I don't have the capital project sheet, the individual sheets down, but, and I know I'm stepping out on this is not a popular thing to say, but we're doing multi-million-dollar projects, and the town is contributing $300,000.
That's why I'm
year.
asking this question. Yeah.
So,
Thing, by the way.
it's, what's that?
That's a beautiful thing.
It is, but what's being pointed out is that I can't realistically stand up here and say, we've got 4 million of the town's money set aside to that, because we don't, we've got.
And I think you do a good job. I'm not trying to, put you on the spot. During our next meeting, I want to know how much of the town's own money are we capable of contributing to Phase 3?
To Phase 3.
Okay?
And I think,
Is that fair?
yeah, I think it's fair. The other thing I was thinking about is that,
It's going to be shockingly low, by the way.
you know, part of the problem that we had on Phase 1 is that, you know, the grant money didn't come quite as quickly as we wanted it to, so we had to start and stop, and we wanted to make sure that we keep projects going, so we wouldn't have to, you know, have them start and stop and charge us $500,000 for remobilization.
Mobilization, yeah.
And we also thought there may be some other issues there, and I think that was one of the reasons that we wanted to have, you know, that .4 fund there.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so let's, we may not be able to necessarily quantify exactly how we want to spend that yet. Okay? The key item there is that before you do spend it,
You want to know about it.
we want to know about it. I think that's the key item anyway.
Well, I'll give you a clue where that money's going to go to spend. Phase 3. You know, I mean, duh. I mean, it might be 600,000. We're looking at.
Well, I'm
you know,
talking about, you know, specifics of where it's going to go. That's what I want to know, and yes, I'm sure that's, and that's why we've been accumulating that money. Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes, I was going to say, I understand you're asking for how much of our own money for Phase 3. I agree that's going to be very hard to predict, in my opinion, because there's so many variables and you're kind of predicting the future. But at least for the year, Mariah, if this is correct, the year we're approving, isn't that transfer from general fund under the capital projects? Isn't that really the saved money that the town would be, whether it's from the .4 or whatever has trickled in at various times or whatever, that would be the amount that the town has saved that it's spending? Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, well, it's going to be from, so what you're seeing in the 2023-24, and I did notice that it's 412, I do have to look at that, because it's about 340,000 in this number, so I do apologize for that. So this year, we would be looking at transferring $340,000, give or take, into the capital
I
fund.
thought you had said the different, getting it to 412 was what you predicted, and some of that
Yes.
might have been that, because you said there's 2 years of the capital, the .4 capital that we haven't quite.
So that's already been transferred.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, so the 2 years have already been put into the capital fund. So if I was just going off the top, we've got $600,000 available. So then you do this 300.
Okay, but the 412 seemed high.
Yes,
I would-
yes, so that's going to actually change. So I need to look at that. I don't know if I have something else in there, but that should be about 340,000.
Okay.
Yeah, so I do apologize about that.
So yeah, maybe then on the balance sheet for the capital projects, right now it's like fund balance restricted and it's 1.27 million. That's on July's balance sheet. For this, I'm talking about this year, but maybe for the future when we're looking for that 0.4 kind of separated out, maybe it could be, take a new account and say this is the 0.4 or whatever versus whatever else is in that 1.27 million, something like that.
You can definitely do that. And just, like I said, for the time being, if you go through fiscal year '24, right now, the town's committed, $900,000, because I think it's been 2 years?
We started it in 2021, I think.
20, yeah, so.
We raised
oh, look.
taxes like summer of '21. That's when I was really feeling it. We were really feeling it.
Yeah, so, and I'll get that detail information.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Great. Do we have enough preliminary information to stop torturing this young lady and?
Well, the tasers are being outphased, so I thought we had to have used for some reason.
No, this is the first crack at it. Are we good for the first
Yes.
crack?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That was a fat buck.
Okay, so that brings us up to 12B, Senate Bill 774, Form 6.
That's gonna be a lot of fun.
Do you want to run us through that, Susan? and-
Yeah, I think I can do this really fast. Of course, if you want to ask questions, feel free, but I think the presentation is fairly self-explanatory. But basically, as a result of Senate Bill 774 being passed, you as town officials are now being put in the same position as a lot of state officials have been for a few years, which is completing Form 6 disclosures, which is a much more robust financial disclosure than what you have previously had to do. So it's not a pleasant thought. So basically, the filing deadline is still July 1st. Keep in mind that the disclosure form is a public record, as your previous disclosure forms have been, and they are posted to the commission's website. However, you don't have a choice under the law about whether you complete the form and what information you provide. Okay, let's see, I'm actually one slide ahead of you because I'm looking
Okay.
at my own presentation.
Oh, you want to just do yours then?
Well,
I don't want to throw you off.
She can't present.
Yeah, I'm looking
have to
at it
follow her.
in my own computer. Okay.
Okay.
From this, so I think I've already covered this, but the financial disclosure requirements now, as a result of the amendment, apply to mayors, elected members of the governing body, and any individual appointed to replace an elected official. Next slide. When does it take effect? It takes effect basically January 1st of 2024. The determinative date is if you are in office as of January 1st, 2024, you must file the Form 6. If you resign before January 1st, 2024, you don't have to file Form 6. That's not a recommendation that I'm making for anyone to do. If you resign on or after January 1st of 24, there's a Form 6F that you would still have to file. Next slide. And this is what's new about it. Now you must include in the Form 6 or the 6F, if you resign, net worth, assets over $1,000, liabilities over $1,000, income and interest in specific businesses. Here's an example of the form, and the reason I guess that it's a 2021 form is, as I said, most state officials have already been filling these out. Next slide, we're there and stay there. So this is an explanation, and there are fairly robust directions along with the form that explain all of this, but it explains what you must include in determining your net worth, what you subtract in liabilities to arrive at your net worth. You don't subtract joint and several liabilities, but you'll see on the form that there are places to report. There's personal assets and debts, and then there's a separate place on the form to report joint assets, joint and several assets, and joint and several liabilities. Okay. I don't need to go over.
Isn't this what Glenn presented us? Is there anything different than, he's already presented this to us?
Has he? Well, it got on the agenda for tonight, so I'll go even
I
faster.
don't think he went over this
Well,
level of
this
detail.
level of detail.
Oh, okay.
I
Okay.
think this is really helpful, by the way.
Okay.
The, let's see, liabilities. There's some detail in this slide that I don't need to read to you about what is meant by liabilities for Part C of the form. In Part D, income. Now, what's important here is that you either have to fill out this Part D of the form, or instead of doing that, you can attach your tax return with all schedules, W-2s, and attachments. If you do that, remember to redact your social security number and other information that, yeah.
They know everything.
So,
Dental records? Dental records?
so, there is some information, and I believe, again, this is included in the instructions, but remember to do those redactions if you take that route. Income means gross income in federal income tax speak. You also must report secondary income if you've got more than a 5% interest in a business entity, or if you received more than $1,000 in gross income from that entity. Moving on to Part E, this is, again, more information about what you must disclose about interest in a business. In a way, these disclosures regarding what businesses you have interest in, that's a useful exercise because that's something that you should disclose anyway if any of those businesses are involved in any matters that come before you as a body. So it's good to take an inventory of that. It's maybe not fun to have to publish that on the state website. Finally, the last slide, penalties for failure to comply are quite serious. They can include impeachment, removal, suspension, public censure, and reprimand.
Reduction in salary.
Reduction in salary, yeah, you'll beg for that one, I guess.
I was going to say, can you pick your penalty?
Or a civil penalty not exceeding $20,000. So it's quite significant. The Ethics Commission has a website that has more information about this. They have also, there are Attorney General opinions that interpret some of these things, and obviously not for these current revisions, but questions about net worth and things like that. There are some Attorney General's opinions that help report it, but that's the deal, and you have a nice picture of Glenn at the end. He did give me the option to put my picture there, but it was already in the packet, so.
Thanks, Susan.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Any other questions on that? If not, we'll move on to, we've got 12C, the September meetings. Did we make a final determination on what we're going to do in September for the 4 meetings?
I almost forgot about that.
You brought it up.
I know.
I support making 2 meetings instead of 3 or 4, or how we've done it in the past where we combined on the same
All
day.
right, so let's start off with, it was the 6th, the 12th, the 19th, and the 26th? April, can you help me with this? Okay. Just out of curiosity, are they all 6 o'clock?
Yes.
Okay, because sometimes there was like 5:05 or
5:05,
something.
yeah.
But they're all 6, okay.
All 6.
Okay. And then, which are the budget meetings, the 6th and 19th?
19th, right.
Okay.
So figuring you could merge the 12th with the 19th since it's so close.
They're all about a week apart.
Yeah.
I will I'm not going to be here on the 6th or the 12th. I'm going to be out of the country.
Okay.
Is that, so you don't have to talk about the budget then? Or?
I have to keep my mouth shut. If you could merge the, I guess, the 12th with the 19th, I could attend that, of course, then, and I only miss
Okay,
one meeting.
That's an idea.
What day are you gone? What day did you say you're
I'm going to
gone?
be gone the 6th and the 12th.
The 6th and the 12th, oh.
Where are you going?
Portugal.
Oh. I don't have my correct calendar with me, so I'm good with.
So if we eliminated, so April, we could eliminate the 12th?
I think we should eliminate the 12th, yes, sir.
So, I mean, merge or whatever, we could just eliminate it,
Yeah.
right? So we could have the 6th, the 19th, and the 26th.
Yes.
That's
like
about as much as we could do, I think, right?
So the 6th and 9th would just be just the budget meetings, and then the
6th and 19th.
19th. The 6th and the 19th would be just the budget meetings, and then the 26th would be a real meeting. Is that what you're thinking?
That's an option. What do you think?
Or do we have too much where we have to like put
Well, you know,
the
when
first
when-
meeting
when-
after?
When items back up, it has a tendency to make the meetings a little longer. I don't know if you've noticed that or not.
I have noticed that. I don't know which one I prefer, to be honest.
Hey, we cover a lot tonight, though.
Yeah.
And it's easier on the staff, too.
This is the beginning of the budget. and
Well,
everything,
why don't, Bob, why don't you, when we get to the 19th, if we have a lot of items, we can put a couple other items other than the budget on the 19th meeting, and that way the 26th meeting won't last until 10 after 9 or whatever.
And you'd have to make it 2 meetings, but we do it one right after the other? Is that correct?
Yes.
Like you can't
Yeah.
put, okay.
So we would just do the
Okay.
budget meeting and then do the,
Okay.
or if you wanted to start our meeting at 5 and run it to 6 and then do the budget meeting, you can do it that way.
Well, let's see what you got.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so we're going to have a budget meeting on the 6th, and if there's a urgent business matter, you might add that to the
Right.
meeting. Then we have a budget meeting, final budget on the 19th, and then a regular business meeting on the 26th.
26th.
All six. Perfect. Okay.
All right.
The vice mayor won't be here on the 6th.
Right.
Or the 12th.
Well, the 12th, we're not
Just
having a meeting.
eliminated the 12th.
He'll be back for the final, though, on the 19th.
Are you all in agreement with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Because we have the second reading of the
Yes.
tree ordinance on the 26th, so.
Right.
Okay, that brings us down to commissioner comments, and we have one, Vice Mayor Kurzman wanted to talk about requirements for water and dirt retention on construction sites.
Yes. Let me see, this past Friday, I saw sunshine, they pumped the pipes that we put in over the last couple of years in Phase 1. And there was a lot of debris from the sites because we have 3 major construction home projects going on River Road. So every time it rains hard, it's washing into our drains. And I was suggesting that we do something. I know one of the homes, they're putting sandbags, it helps somewhat, but what happened, it was so powerful and everything, it went over the sandbags. So I was suggesting that we put something like a berm or a double berm on their sites when they do this, or they have to stack when they leave at the end of the day, these sandbags, because every time they pump, it's costing us $4,000. And if it defeats the purpose of the project at this point. Let me see, the other thing, it's also dirtying up the streets. I mean, you can see up to 6 inches of dirt and muck just going across. And it's also going into people's backyards. It's going through their driveway into their backyards. Now they have a pile of 6 inches to the back of their backyard that just piled in. And this is something that's undeserved. People living peacefully, and this has got to be controlled somehow. And when I was out there with Bob, I believe was it Monday? I met you, and we're over there, we're watching one of the guys that are in charge of the site. He's washing everything down. Where's it going? Into our drains, right after we just had them pumped. And when I brought up that he needs to put a berm or something over there, he goes, well, that's going to be destroyed from the trucks going in and out. I go, then put a concrete one over there. You know how much it's going to cost us to do this? It'll cost me a few $1,000s. I go, and Bob, so what? But it's costing us $4,000 to pump this every time that this mud and muck and rocks and everything else, all the other debris goes down there. If it costed $4,000 or $3,000, it's either the taxpayers are going to pay for it or he's going to pay for it. And I hope you could all agree with me on what the answer should be on that. And
Well, it seems to me, I think I hear what you're,
and it's going to rain continuously heavy many times between now and November. And these projects aren't going to be done between that now and then. And so it's not going away. And it's going to continuously go. It's getting worse as things go, and it's more lackadaisical.
well, my question is do we need to make modifications or changes to the ordinance, or is it a case of enforcement?
A combination.
Okay,
I
so
suppose.
maybe we need to make some, or maybe you want to make some recommendations, and we can look at a revised ordinance or whatever?
Yeah, well, the first thing is, you could take, for example, the one that's on Margarita at the end over on River Road. He built higher and higher and higher, so now it's coming down like this. So all the dirt comes down like this. It's just like it's going down a hill, and it's raining. There's no grass. And so all you're doing is collecting dirt, and it's going right into the drain on the corner of Margaret, which is part of our project, and it's going directly into our project. It's feeding into those drains over there. And when sunshine was... It's going right underneath the silt fences in some cases, but the main part, it's going right in their main entrance. And there's nothing to divert the water and the dirt. I'm not talking just water, I'm talking dirt, muck, whatever you want to call it, with rocks. And we have the same thing. You're going down further. If you go Palm Road and South River Road, you go just south of Palm Road, there's a construction, it's like a large flag lot. The water's coming flying. You still have the dirt right now. You're welcome to see it in the morning. They've done nothing. And one of the things I suggest is that you cannot work, basically you can't even cut a piece of wood or anything until it's cleaned immediately. The work site is closed until we approve it to be reopened. They're continuously working, but they're ignoring what everybody else is concerned about. And they don't see, I think once you...
Well, Dave, the question I have, you say they're ignoring, is there an ordinance that they're ignoring? And if there is,
I think
why aren't we doing enforcement on it? If it's not an ordinance, we need to make the ordinance. I don't understand.
I think there should be, I'm almost definite, there's got to be some sort of ordinance out there that says you can't have all your property washed into the road. There's got to be something.
Does the building official know how this is supposed to be?
Yeah, Jack, do you have any recommendations about what we need to do here in terms of either modifying an ordinance or doing more enforcement of the current ordinance?
I don't know of any ordinance that will regulate this issue. Silt barriers are installed on most. I did have a discussion with all of them on Monday. The problem with the silt barrier is that they're there initially, and over the time, the subcontractors or contractors run them over. And then in other cases where they are there, they're only on part of the property besides the entrance. And that's where, in the one at the end of Mandalay, it's coming straight down the driveway, straight down. It's actually going, he tried, that contractor there tried to put a lot of gravel at the entrance, and then he put this plastic driveway up to try to resolve that issue. But the water's...
16 Mandalay you're talking about?
No, it's actually it's 159 River.
On South River.
Yeah, it's on South River. And so the water's actually even going underneath his plastic driveway. And it's actually, the gravel is even washing out into the road.
Do you find that resident cooperative with your suggestions?
The resident or the contractor? I have to ask that because I speak to the resident and he's very cooperative.
Because to me, I mean, just to Dave's point, it's an absolute pigsty. I mean, the mud is just, it's like the Amazon.
Yeah.
And for us to just spend all this money on all this infrastructure, we've got to come up with something. I mean, it's an absolute, the whole road is a pigsty. Now, hopefully we have this project, South River Road, where we're going to pitch the road and have some gully, what do they call them, gully gutters?
Yeah, Miami
Right.
curbs.
Miami curb.
Well, we
call
can't
it,
wait.
which is
That's a couple of years away, but, Bob, you...
I think we need to, and maybe I can get with Susan and we can look at different ordinances, but what we need is something to control the construction site after they leave at the end of the day. Because that's, we get our rains during the evening hours, or if they're, when they leave the site, just so they don't leave it wide open again. And, put the emphasis back on the contractors to figure out a way to do it. I don't want to dictate to them that you have to do it this way. Then if the way that we dictate doesn't work, then they're off the hook. I think it's better that we require them to secure their dirt, and they can put down temporary sod to, hold the dirt in place. But what happens if you have a heavy rain and it washes the sod away? So, there's a lot of different things that are involved in it. But I think if we, can give Susan a chance to do some research on it, I'm sure we're not the only community in Florida that's had this problem, so.
And I'm also thinking that, maybe it's more a question of, doing a good job of maintaining the silt fence, because like was mentioned, those silt fences look really great for about a week, and then they're falling apart, and
The pitch from up top to the road is probably, I'm going to say, 10 feet within one lot. I mean, no fence is going to do it. They need to, we made an ordinance change, Dave, with his leadership, to have every new construction retain their water. What happened to that? I mean, he needs to hold on to that water and not send it down.
Well,
he needs to have,
part of that
behind
is-
that wall, he needs to retain that water.
Part of that is during the final completion of the project is their on-site retention. That is, but they don't have that during the construction. That's the problem, because, and sometimes they can't, because all the equipment's right there where they're going to put the retention or
All right,
all the
so
materials.
what's his game plan for retaining it before he gets the CO? Because that's our.
Before he gets the CO, is a water retention area. They have to have water retention
What has he got
areas.
planned for that? I mean.
no, this is a construction issue. This is not a final CO issue.
No. I mean,
Yeah.
but you're not going to give the CO unless there's on-site.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Correct.
So do you know, hey, how are you guys planning on doing
Oh,
this?
yeah, they submitted on a site plan
Okay. What
prior to the permit.
So what mechanism are they using to retain the water?
I think you might be approaching this the wrong way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we are approaching it the wrong way.
For on-site water retention, they have to have basically a dry retention area, a ditch, basically.
Okay.
They can't have it too deep, because then it will you have a whole nother issue of mosquitoes staining water. So
Well,
depending on the
Go to
average.
Mandalay and South River Road after a long rain, and you'll understand.
Oh, I
Yeah.
fully
Yeah.
understand.
And what I had a discussion with every one of these contractors Monday, and I even sent out an email to follow up my discussion. And I asked for each one of them to come up with an action plan by the end of this week on
Okay.
how they intend, and I put it back at them instead of,
Okay.
like
Right,
Bob was
okay,
saying,
okay.
we don't want to give them,
Right.
tell them how to do it. So each one of them have to give me an idea, or not an actual idea, a plan on how they intend to resolve their issue. And
Perfect.
each one might be different too,
Okay.
because they have different.
All right. I'm very satisfied with that. Thank you for
Let's
answering.
give Commissioner Fender a chance.
Well, I was just going to finish up.
So,
but-
the problem is clear. I think we're probably going about it the wrong way. As it was alluded to earlier, I don't really care what the technology is that makes this happen. We said silt fences, we shouldn't even say that. But the question is there an ordinance on the books today that states that a contractor and the homeowner are responsible for maintaining the soil inside of their property values? I was hoping that's what the chief handed you. And if it is, what is the penalty for not adhering to it? Because I don't want to wait for the CO. I want to say, as Dave possibly applied, you've got to stop work. I just put a red tag on your site until you clean the mess you just made up. And it's got to be maintained throughout the life of the project, not at the
Yeah.
end or,
Yes.
It does say that stormwater systems, there's a ordinance 52-26, illicit discharges, general prohibitions, except as set forth under section 52-26C of this chapter, or in accordance with the valid NPDES permit, any discharge to the stormwater system that is not composed entirely of stormwater is prohibited.
Okay.
So, like you said, the
Can
runoff
we get
from
whatever
the-
that ordinance is shared to us by next meeting or something? And if we have to enhance or strengthen that ordinance to make sure that contractors are complying to it?
That's pretty clear to me.
Yes.
Well, I
Yes.
didn't hear a penalty to.
No.
What is the penalty?
It doesn't go into a penalty on that. And what we had discussed when Bob and I discussed this yesterday is, what we have to do is actually cite them, bring them before the code board, and because we looked at okay, how do you proceed with the penalty phase?
Yeah.
And they would have to, again, schedule a code board hearing,
Okay.
go before the hearing, and then
Well, I
set the
think
fine at that time.
whatever you decide on the penalty, when you issue their permit to start working the project, that whatever that is stapled on a separate piece to their permit. Don't forget, you have to adhere to this, so.
I was going to suggest maybe we could add conditions to the permit.
Yeah.
So that if they violate the conditions of the permit, provided that they're supported by the
Yeah.
code as well. And then if they violate the permit, then you can pull their permit. I mean,
So
you
can you give us
can-
those suggestions, Susan?
Sure, I can look up some examples. I mean, I'll need Jack's input about what's.
Yeah.
That's kind of where we're trying to look for full.
Yeah, can I go one more thing? I was talked to somebody a lot smarter than I am when it comes to this, from back where I lived in, as I told you in the past, I lived in a hilly region before, and water retention and, controlling water is very important. When you have a home on a hill that's coming down, they're doing a construction site, what they would do is it would be almost immediate when you go off the road, you're going, because these trucks can handle it. A small car's not going to get up there, but you're going up, you want it up over you want to gradually up 2 feet higher than, I guess, going across the entire site. So what happens when the water comes down, it's not going to go up over the 2-foot hump, and it's concrete now. So it's not going to deteriorate, so it's going to stay over there. At the end, it's up to them to remove the concrete. It's their problem. But they want to do it, they want to be high up, guess what, you have a penalty to pay.
Yeah,
If you want to
The problem here is that, I think we just talked about, we don't want to be telling the contractor how to do it.
I think we've come up with a good solution, and it was because you brought it up. So let's let them work together to come back. I think it was very brave of you because you've seen it firsthand. So we've got some things that we're going to put in motion, and I think the commission will remember.
Absolutely.
Okay, so thank you very much, Dave.
No, I
Bob,
appreciate you taking this
you'll
time.
follow up with us on
Yes.
on that item? Okay.
And can I say one more thing? We were just talking about the Form 6, and this is the only time we could ever talk about this amongst ourselves. And it may not be a bad idea that ourselves, Jupiter Island, and Ocean Breeze get together when they have one of these meetings in Tallahassee, that we actually go there and able to talk on the floor at Tallahassee. And if it would make sense to go as a group and explain that, how we feel about it, and because each
Do you
one of
believe
these,
it's possible to rescind this?
we're all volunteers, and to go and give our personal information on us and our spouse and our family, it's all, our family information's on our tax returns. And, why should my wife's jewelry have to come into this, or your wife's jewelry, or your husband, what he does, or his cars? It's nobody's business. And it's an invasion of privacy at this point. The only vendors we have is Joe Capra, we have Dennis Serafini, and we have our legal team. Those are, and we're so limited. We're such a small town. We have less than 1,000 homes. And I'd be willing to take a ride to Tallahassee if we could get up as a group, basically the 3 volunteer commissions that are in Martin County could go up there. And
I think you may want to start with League of Cities and talk to them about their home rule initiatives, and be more than just you. You need all cities with you in a concerted lobby effort to make any forward progress on this.
And I don't think this one is up for any discussion in the future, at least scheduled for the future. I think this is,
Well, you can add it as legislation if somebody
it's true, but I
is
think
hurt,
right
yeah.
now they consider it a done deal.
For this year, yes, but
The
you're.
League of Cities did oppose this during the legislative session.
Yeah.
And you can always, it really makes a difference if we, or whoever feels this way, you email your representatives or email people, and I think that makes a difference too. I agree with what you're saying, though. The more presence you make and the more you let it be known, they have to know. And residents don't, the people that are not elected officials aren't feeling it like we are. So they're not as apt to let the legislators know how they feel. So I did tell one of our representatives how I felt about it. And, you can do it respectfully and kindly, but it's different. They're in a different position than we are.
Yeah, but the ship has sailed because December 31st is the date.
Correct.
The legislature doesn't meet until January.
This would have to be changing it for the future.
This is not changing.
Yeah.
So once you serve January 1st, you're going to have to file for 2023 and 2024. Ship has sailed.
Yeah.
Yeah, but my question is, you going to do that forever? I mean, can't you change the law again to remove it?
Yeah, you can.
Take it back?
Yeah, but I think once you,
It's not going to help us.
once the barn door is open,
Well, the question is, that's my question, can you go back? We can't, but for future generations, we want to make it better so we don't lose all of our leaders, right?
Well, I think and that was a question I was going to have for you, Susan, but you actually file the form by June 30th. It's just the type of form you're going to file on June 30th of '24 for covering your 23 expenditures is going to be the Form 6. So hypothetically, if the legislative session in January decides to take up the fact that you have volunteers on a commission, maybe remove that requirement of either a small town or however you want to do it, or the fact that you're volunteers.
That should be the.
You know, and I think that could be a push that maybe they could see, okay, maybe we're too strong or what. Again, you know, I was pushing the League of Cities to really come up with alternatives instead, but they took the lobbying effort of just staying against it altogether. And the momentum, you could tell, was already there to pass this thing. So our only hope was trying to modify it to where it, you know, volunteers, that you all don't receive a salary or anything else, and, you know, you shouldn't have to be under that constraint.
Yeah. So let me just add, mechanically speaking, the legislature convenes in mid-January. The committee meetings start convening in November. So conceivably, you could have some sponsored legislation that would exempt volunteer boards from the Form 6, and you could gain sponsors, you know, during the committee process prior to December 31st, because that's the moment of truth. That's the moment of truth. So then people would have that opportunity to say, like, possibly they're going to come up with something. There's enough committee support, enough sponsorship from both sides, the Senate and the House, and that's clearing committee by the end of December, and that if the law was passed January, February, that it would be retroactive. It would be a risk, but that's, you know, what the Florida League of Cities, if they really were concerned about, you know, and which I always thought they were all about the smaller communities. But I think that they fought like it was like an all or nothing. They didn't think of it as the small communities.
I feel like they said, at least at the league, that nobody wanted it, but then they modified their position, I believe, to try to say, and they said that there was not really any budging modified.
I think it was just a little too late
Gotcha.
to make that change. I think if they would have looked at it when the bill was filed and then try to mitigate it then, but instead, I think all the constituents of the League of Cities didn't want it.
Right.
So that's kind of the method that they chose.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Mayfield,
Yeah.
you had.
I just had a quick thing. I think it was Tina. I have to check. I'm very impressed if you remember that ordinance and were able to pull it up, because nobody else was mentioning it, and that is
amazing.
important. So thank you, because that helped solve a problem. I'm impressed. Thank you.
She could dictate the entire ordinance book.
Gee, literally throw the book at you.
Okay, any other commissioner comments?
Move it.
If not, motion.
If I can just let you know that, I just have information. I just want to tell you, we posted the RFQ for engineers and CEI inspections today. So they'll be open on the, I got the wrong one here. I think they're open on the 18th of September was our date?
Is the close, that's the closing.
Right, the close, and
Yeah.
so we,
Demand,
Okay.
on Demand Store, it's on Demand Store already? Okay, cool.
and it's being published, so. Anyhow, so I just want to let you all know, because I haven't had an opportunity to talk to everybody.
So we'll see you on the 6th, right? We'll be here again?
Or
Right.
sooner.
We have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right.
We're adjourned.
All right. Good night.
Thank you for giving me the extra.